Hello and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and on my left here we have
Rob
and we have
Glyn.
on the right. This is left and right, isn't it?
Could we change it up every week so it throws you off when we change
We did
sides?
actually change it up. Last time we did it?
Yes, we did.
You guys were on the other side, so I had to do the levels again. But it's not much of a problem, really.
We've been mirroring each other pretty similar, but Glyn's rocking a hat today.
Glyn is rocking a hat.
I thought I'd change it up. I matched my green to my green. That's good.
But you're still the same person.
Allegedly.
Kind of, yeah. Been a bit sick, though. Been a bit poorly, have you?
Oh, yeah, I was a little bit last week, but I haven't been so bad. I've kind of come good. But I think at the moment everyone's kind of getting a bit sick, but not fully sick, but pretty sick.
It's going around, isn't it? It's very cold here in Melbourne.
Going around, yeah.
It is going around. It's very cold here in Melbourne at the moment, I must say.
I love it. Love the cold.
Is it that cold? Is it
honestly?
like
I feel
cold?
like I feel cold. I feel colder here than I did in Wellington. I think partly because the houses are not so well insulated.
No.
The only times I've seen you have no pants on, so no wonder it's cold.
I still don't have any pants on, but you can't see, so it's fine.
The miracles of cameras.
Unfortunately, we can.
Oh dear, oh dear. Off to a good start here then.
Yeah.
Well, this is episode 3, but technically 4 because we did an episode 0. But we're already at 4 episodes, and the sound sounds better in my ears, so that's cool. That's one thing that we've worked on.
And the lights shouldn't turn off anymore. We're powering it by cables now. No more batteries.
Oh yeah, so that happened twice.
These things in the wall that we put the cables into, and it's this constant stream of light.
You know, it's a work in progress. It's a whip, as they say. These kids these days with whips. What have we been up to? Let's get into that, shall we?
What
have we been up to? Hold on a second. What's happening here? Where is all my sound? Can't find it. Get on with it. What have you been up to, Glenn? That's the one I was looking for. Am I that predictable?
Down in the dungeon. So I think last time I talked here, I got my World Eaters, got that arrived, and I did my little test model. I think that was good fun to get that together. So I decided on my schemes of going for a black World Eater instead of just the usual red.
I've seen
red
green.
trim.
I've seen green a little bit.
Yeah.
Like green and copper. Or brass or whatever it is.
Like that, the worn effect.
That works. Yeah. But the corner's obviously mostly red, I suppose.
Yeah, so I've gone mostly black with a little red trim. As matches my other corn demons, which they're juggernauts and stuff are black. So kind of did a test of proof of concept model, and that was good fun. And it's the first time I've actually gone all out with the bases too. So I'm like making like broken down fences on the bottom and all things like that. So that's because every time I get a new army or do something different, I try to do something new that I didn't do before, whether it's like, I'll learn a new technique, or like with my, what are the names? Nighthaunt. That's when I started using more like the contrasts and trying to do wet blending and things like that. So
This is a story of personal growth.
Oh, it is. As I said, the new technique comes out, I'm like, oh, cool, I can spend another $300.
Wait till that's I've got to learn how to do it somewhere.
I'm doing this one now. I'm like, sweet, I can start a new army because I'm learning that slap chop. Yeah. I'm doing that. But besides that, my actual hobbying and painting stuff's been a bit down, but I've been listening to audiobooks. It's been interesting. So listen to Gotrek Gurnisson Realm Slayer.
That's one of the Gotrek and Felix.
Yep. Except no longer Gotrek and Felix. This is the one in AOS. So this was the...
what happened to Felix? You just never made it. Poor little fucker. Too mortal.
Maybe he didn't. I'm not that far into the books yet, so some souls came over, some souls didn't, but we don't know yet.
So Felix isn't in it?
Not in this one, no. So it's actually a really interesting audiobook because Gotrek is voiced by Brian Blessed.
Really? Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
what a perfectly cast. I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It made it the most...
Do you know who Brian Blessed is?
I have no idea who he is.
You don't know Brian Blessed by talking like this. Yes.
So he says things like, "Dive, my birdman," and things like that. And he says, "Gordon's alive!"
Yep. He is the most theatrical voice you could ever hear in your life. But he has the personality and face to back that up. He's his mighty brave beard.
The thing is, he actually looks like a dwarf as well in real life. He's a massive bloke, but he's got this big beard and he's got wild eyes and he's crazy and he's like... you know?
He has the energy of the biggest theatrical person ever. But he has he has the best voice. As in, I think it was from the TV show, one of the English TV shows, I've forgotten the name of it.
You're talking about Loose Women?
No. Ah,
Have you seen him on Loose Women?
no, I haven't seen him lose with
Fucking
him.
hell. He turns up on Loose Women. It's a show about with 4. We're getting off topic here. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's a show about with 4 women that that host it in Britain, and it's just like a very tame sort of daytime TV show sort of thing. And he goes on it anyway, and he just makes an absolute scene.
Yeah.
Gets on the table and starts screaming, and these 4 women are just sat there like, whoa. And I think it was on that. I'm not sure what it was on, but he told a story about him or his mate climbing Mount Everest or something and taking a shit off the side of the mountain and it going back into his face or something like that. And it's like, whoa, dude, he's so inappropriate. It's brilliant.
He's been around forever, but he has the voice, and like in that show, he's sitting goes like, "Why else do the rest of us humans talk when you can?" Like that's how good his voice is.
Pretty much, yeah.
So he does the voice of Gotrek, and it is like the most entertaining audiobook. So I've been doing that in my driving. But the actual Realm Slayer was fantastic because it's the whole story is based off him arriving in the mortal realms after obviously end times happened. So he's kind of arriving. He doesn't know where he's been. He's been in the realm of chaos, slaying all the demons.
Of course he has. Yeah.
And he's just arrived in the mortal realms, not knowing where he is, and he's running around with the fire slayers and a couple other things, and it's super interesting. That was the most entertaining, and I've now got all the other Gotrek and Felix audiobooks. Unfortunately, no Brian Blessed, but
That's fantastic that they got him though. Like I mean, obviously he's at the twilight of his career and he's probably in his 70s now, I imagine. But it probably doesn't cost that much money to get him to do stuff. Maybe we should get him to do an intro
100%.
for the podcast.
At the very least, get like a cameo.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That would be like a lifetime achievement. That one. But that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What else have you been up to? Anything else?
Other ones. So now I'm listening to the audiobook for Soul Wars, which is really interesting. I've never, because one of those books I think I've gone to read a few times and never got around to.
What's Soul
Is that
Wars?
one that
Soul Wars
begins for AOS?
Yeah, so essentially when 2.0 happened, that's when like obviously the story progressed. And Soul Wars was when the Gash essentially did a big thing and exploded everything and everything. Nagash.
I thought you said the Gash.
Oh, no.
That's what I thought.
I was like, where's this going?
The Gash. Yes.
Essentially, Nagash did the big bad boom, and everywhere in every realm, all the dead were rising, and he's done all these good things. And this is kind of the start of like the other Stormcast coming through and new ones and introducing characters, and this is where the Nighthaunt come into the thing. So
did that happen at the launch of AOS?
no. Soul Wars.
Yeah.
No, Soul Wars was the 2.0s when they did the next edition. So the initial.
Okay, so the overall narrative has progressed.
Hugely.
And these huge landmarks
So
happened.
the initial.
Okay, that's cool.
The initial, literally, the 1.0 when it first got released was Chaos has won, and here are these Stormcasts, and they're now trying to open up the whole thing. And that's where the first AOS 1.0 was the Realm Gate Wars. I think there's like 14 books just for that series.
Jesus, really?
Yeah.
Novels.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it's 14 of that, and that's majority. The two things were Stormcast and Khorne, and then 2.0 was when Nagash kind of went boom, and then it was all about death armies and all around there. And obviously now at the end of 2.0 was when, oh my god, I can't believe I've forgotten his name. The big bad
Kronos
destruction.
or something like that with the big
Kragnos.
horns?
Kragnos. So Kragnos got released, and so that's now the narrative there, and where it goes next is we don't know. Yeah. So I like that with the new editions. It's kind of like here's a huge story progression.
I do like the concept of a living story.
Yeah.
I found that back in Warhammer Fantasy days. It was always stuck at the same sort of time frame. And I found 40k was back in the early noughties as well. It always seemed to be hovering around at one point.
Yeah.
But now they've evolved their kind of their format to have it actually progress. It just feels so much more engaged when you're in an active world, I think.
But they did it work quite well with. Sorry, we're still going off topic, but that's the best thing about this podcast.
Okay.
The best thing was having the models and stuff. So there were one of the ones that had Marathi, which is also the head of all Canaanites and things like that. She had two models. There's one of her like as a regular elf, and one where she was like ascended into this huge snake.
Why
one.
was that?
Why did they have two?
Yeah.
Because how the rules worked was she'd stay as an elf. A small elf, and then halfway through the game she'd get angry and then turn into the big one.
So like Hulk elf.
Yeah, she kind of got Hulk elf, and that was the whole thing. Yeah. But obviously everyone kind of got disappointed. Like, you got to pay two models. I'm like, I like this model better. I can't do that one. And so how kind of the story worked was she ended up like, scheming her own things, and then was sucking in all these souls to then turn herself into a god itself.
Yeah.
But what happened during there is I've forgotten the name of it. Who was Marathi's husband?
I don't know.
Back in the old.
You're the AOS guy.
This is what do you call it? Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, but I don't remember.
Alarion,
I am
I think it
old.
was Alarion, Onarion, or something like that. Something like that. But essentially, what happens? She's just about to be things, and his soul comes through and sunders her in half. And then obviously
I bet he does.
she's
I bet he does. Sunders her in half. How romantic.
Just shuts you down.
shuts you down. Like, all right, you know what? We'll just skip you on. But then essentially she's split in two, and that's how they now have two models. You can use both, and then it's just fun. It's a fun way of doing like adding lore to get around in-game things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went well off track.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
No innuendo
How
about
do we
it.
start? How do we start off? Oh, Realm Wars and all like that. Besides that, yes, that's me so far.
That's what you've been up to.
Yes.
What have you been up to?
Oh,
You've been up to all sorts.
fair bit of sleep deprivation.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, got a 7-week-old at home.
Yeah.
So if I'm flat on this podcast, it's because I'm fucking tired. Other than that, a bit more warcry. Yep. Painted up a few more warbands. Really happy.
few
with
more.
Really happy with where my Sands of the Flame got to.
Yeah, they look great.
Yep. They look pretty on fire, which is great.
Yeah.
Been mucking around with that. Also, a bit of Curse City.
Yes.
Oh, you guys played last week. I couldn't
Glenn and I
make it.
with exactly with Stu, another guy from the club.
Yeah. Shout out to Stu.
Hi Stu.
That was nice. You like that?
Yeah, we cracked off a game on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it was fun. Yeah, never played I think we talked about last podcast. I might have played a Warhammer Quest or might have played a Hero Quest back when I was a kid.
Back in the day.
Yeah. But it was, great fun. It was like, some of it was a bit slow, but felt great doing a co-op instead of a competitive.
And
for
you
the first time.
were playing as well as DMing of sorts, or how does it work?
Cursed City,
kind of.
all the enemies are kind of, there's like an AI, or, derivative event board that controls them. So you don't really have a dungeon master, so to speak,
Yeah,
of like
it's-
someone who organizes things, because everything's done by cards and automated.
Yeah, it's all preordained, so
Yeah.
there's no subjectivity in it
I
as far
see,
as the
yeah.
the NPCs. It's all preset.
Okay.
So you only have 4 heroes, and it's good fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. So a little bit of hopping around that. It's actually not much of a reader, like a novel reader, but I had started the Curse City book. It's about
You're a
way
law
through that.
reader, but just not novels, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm more of a screen reader.
Yeah.
It's funny how there's like subcategories in the hobby to the point of like, I don't read novels, but I look up a lot of lore.
Yeah, it's like
It equates
I fucking demolished the
probably,
wiki. So.
it takes just as much time.
Yeah. Probably equates to a lot of novels.
Yeah.
You brought something in that you made.
Oh.
Do you want to grab it? Can you grab it? Yeah, grab it. Oh. Made this at home, didn't you? Here's one you made earlier.
For a guy who works in IT, it's a bit random. I've got access to a laser cutter, but
That's true.
there we go. Yeah, mucking around with a dice dashboard. So this actually came out in pretty much similar layout.
Yeah. Can see
In a White Dwarf.
There you go.
In a White Dwarf a couple of months ago. But it was like, here's a piece of paper, get some foam board, cut it out. Too much faffing around.
Yeah.
But yeah, talked to the guys in the product department. And I was like, oh, can I use some of your kit? Yeah.
Very
Looked it
cool.
up in Illustrator and looks the part. Haven't played a game on it yet, only
We
cut it up
haven't
an hour
tested
ago.
to see if the dice fit on it, but I imagine they will.
Yeah.
Looks pretty great though.
There are some fantastic looking ones on Etsy.
Yeah.
I feel like a shout out to Schooner Labs.
Schooner Labs.
Schooner
Sounds
Labs.
like it must be an Aussie.
No, Canadian.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was keen
Schooner
to...
or Skooma?
No, Schooner like the beer, I think.
I know it was Skooma from, was it?
Schooner's such an Aussie thing to say.
Maybe it's Skooma.
Oh, Skooma is like an Elder Scrolls thing, which is like a...
Oh, not the
essentially-
dope.
Yeah, not dope. Yeah.
Not that Skooma. Anyway, if you Google it, you'll find his stuff. It's great. Except his, unfortunately, his store's out of action at the moment. Canada and wildfires and all that.
That's no good, is
So,
it?
yeah. So it doesn't compare to his, but yeah, fun.
Sorry to those Canadians out there.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
What
What's
else?
happening? Have I missed something? Massive?
Huge
Have I missed something massive?
Yes. There's huge wildfires happening in Canada. To the point of like, even in like places like New York, they're like, hey, maybe don't go outside because the air quality is so bad.
Hey, isn't it always cold in Canada?
No.
Or am I just really ignorant?
You're very ignorant. Yes.
Very ignorant.
Very ignorant.
If you're more... if you're less ignorant, you'll know the word is ignorant.
Have you not heard anyone say ignorant before?
No.
I was joking. It was a joke.
Oh, yeah. No,
I shouldn't be joking because it sounds like...
Yeah, like he's trying to make up this big backstory now about how he
That's how he say it back in Wellington. Yeah,
It's not
ignorant.
about. It's not all
Everyone's
about.
ignorant.
It's not all about me. It's about Canada by the sounds of it, and I'm sorry that I was ignorant.
What else? I have... Look, last podcast, Glenn asked, would you ever play one of the big games? Would you ever play AOS or 40k? And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
nah, I wouldn't. Well, 3 weeks later, all this hype around 10th edition. I'm like, oh, those space dwarves do look pretty cool. So yeah,
Your hooks.
So now,
Did you say space dwarves?
The space dwarves.
Yeah, space dwarves.
Yeah, so now collecting Leagues of Catan.
Oh God. There's a random siren there.
It's dire.
Have you read up on their lore?
I have read the codex.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially the way the AI works that they use. And there's nothing. There's definitely some chaos that could get into that AI somehow.
They have a sort of Vansar sort of ish sort of story.
Yes and no. They're healthy. They're clones.
You know how they have that? What's it called?
They're meant to be technologically advanced, like Vansar relatively are.
Yeah.
Necro. But effectively, their leaders are these old AIs. The Votan or however you pronounce it.
And they're malfunctioning slowly or something, or
they're just incredibly old, so they're a bit obtuse. They've kind of it's almost like a quasi-religion. You've got these effectively seer-like individuals who commune with them, and sometimes it might take years to get a response back. Sometimes you get more direct responses, that sort of thing. So they are meant to be this font of all the knowledge.
Very
And
cool.
for these clones, the actual kin, their goal is to collect experiences. So it's quite an expansionist concept, and they're all out there, getting new shit, getting new resources, learning new things. When they die, they want to get their memories absorbed back into the AI.
So obviously you two are slightly newer to 40k lore, I suppose. But are they actually anything to do with squats?
Yes.
Are they quite different? I mean, obviously they are squats. Right? But have they rewritten the lore entirely, or?
Yeah,
I guess they have and they haven't sort of thing, I guess. I suppose
squats were adhumans. These guys, they're like, looks like they came from Terra a gazillion years ago, and then the rest of from that was new. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But they are colloquially. Thank you. Known as squats, so that's meant to be their derogatory term.
Right. Okay.
So they are linking them, but they're different.
Anyway, and they're kind of at the point where like humans they stopped advancing their technology, where they're like, no, we're kicked to you. AI is still good. We've still got robots.
I feel mixed about them. I know when they came out, I was kind of excited about it. I really like the generic troops. I think they look wicked, but some of the massive bulky guys in the exosuits, I'm not so keen on those guys.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Like I like the vehicles. I think they look sick.
And the weird fucking hover bikes. Don't like those.
Oh, I like them.
They're cool.
Do you?
Yeah. I like the
with their revolvers. They're cool.
I don't know.
The Terminator equivalents, though, the half guard with the big shoulder pads.
Yeah, they're a bit silly.
They're a little bit. I might convert them a little bit when they arrive.
Yeah.
But fuck it. Yeah. And for some reason, I just really like them in orange.
Yeah.
Orange is fun to, it's fun to paint. It's
quite hard to paint, don't you think?
No.
Okay.
No.
I always struggled with orange.
Couple of
orange
layers.
and yellow. Yellow's particularly hard to paint.
Newer paints these days.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah. Bit of contrast is a great base, and then build it up with like a bit of Troll Slayer orange.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So that's what you've been up to?
That's where I've fallen, yeah.
That's where you've fallen? I have no idea what I've been
up
to.
What about you?
Oh, mate, all sorts. It's hard to get past the big news. The big news is that I'm moving to Sydney, which is a bit sad. Oh, where are we? No, that's the slam stick thing.
Game over.
Well, it's not.
Oh, it's not game over.
I mean, that's a bit negative.
That is so negative.
But
God, so fatalist.
no, I'm feeling a bit gutted about not being able to do this in person with you guys. But I hope that we'll be able to figure out a solution so we can do it. We just carry on with it.
Yeah, we have the technology.
We do have the technology, but we just
we can rebuild it.
It's different in person though, isn't it? I think, and it's my fault. I'm breaking it all up, and I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm moving to Sydney. Partner's got a good job there. Life didn't necessarily work out in Melbourne as well as I'd hoped. It's only been here about 6 months, and now we're going to be moving again, which is a massive stress and a drain on everything. So hopefully we don't end up killing each other.
Just for reference, Damon, for the people in the Northern Hemisphere, Damon decided to try Melbourne in winter.
You know what? I actually think, I'm not being funny. I actually think that's partly what's contributed to feeling like I'm not really that into it. Has been the surprise cold snap that I just never associated with Australia.
It's such a surprise. It happens every year.
Well, no, I just in my head, my naive British head, I grew up with Paul Hogan. And that was my only thing that I knew about Australia was Crocodile Dundee. So I just thought everybody walked around with corks attached to their hats. And skinned crocodiles, and and we're just violent misogynists and general.
Sydney's definitely got a milder winter.
Yeah.
It'll still be cold though.
It's going to be cold and it's to be more humid there.
Yeah, more
You'll
spiders
fucking
too.
hate summer.
Yeah, hate summer.
You'll be like, fuck, let's get back to.
But I'm looking
dry
forward to being
winter.
by the sea. For me, I feel like that's something
You're
that I
better.
really enjoy
You're
being.
better.
What do you mean?
You know-
Stop. Thing is about I'll tell you, everyone out there who's not from Melbourne, what Melbourneites like to do is they like to moan about Sydney a lot. And half the time,
Look, Sydney
Wait
is
till you
gorgeous.
get to
wait.
Sydney.
Half
lived
the
there for
time,
5 years.
I feel like it's not jealousy. I know it's not jealousy. Don't worry. But what I think it is just because everyone else does it, you do it too. Because it's
No,
like it's the dumb
I've been to
thing.
Sydney so many times and I do not like it.
I like Sydney.
The layout's not good. The coffee's not good.
I will say that.
Stop.
Their coffee is not good.
Oh, stop.
I was
don't
taking
know
the piss
that.
because you're going to be by the sea if you live by the sea.
Yeah.
If you don't live by the sea, you hardly ever go to the sea.
Yeah.
No, but just the sea air, you know? It's something I need in my
Harbour.
lungs.
You'll get the harbour.
You're the
water.
harbour. You're not sea, you're at the harbour.
But
Still
I reckon
the sea.
I would say you go to the sea maybe max 3 times a year.
Yeah, probably you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. You're right.
Once you find the traffic from CBD to Bondi, you're like, fuck,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
never going again.
It's a different city, it's a different place. New opportunities, who knows? Hopefully I enjoy it. If anyone's out there listening from Sydney, then I'd really be interested in getting together and playing some games, Warcry, Necromunda, things like that. It'd be good to know where the clubs are as well, because I'm really gutted that I'll be leaving Axe to
Just
Nails.
slide straight into his DMs.
I don't know why, but a bloke of your age saying that just seems really strange. It's like something that an 18-year-old TikTok girl would say, I suppose. But I don't know. Do people still say that at our age?
Slide into DMs.
Yeah.
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 Okay, fair enough. You said it.
Direct messaging was born in our generation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Shit, I have no idea. What else have been up to?
Did you not pirate anything? Like Kazaa
People our age
or
invented.
LimeWire? How else do you think you got these? Google didn't have
I have
this.
no fucking idea.
The
So-
people who build it are us.
True. Yeah. Anyway. So hobby-wise, I haven't been doing a lot. Haven't been painting a lot, or really, have I? No, I haven't. We've been playing a bit of Warcry in between the last few episodes. Quite a
A
bit.
few weeks ago,
You and I
yeah.
have. We've been playing a bit of Necromunda. We had a big multiplayer Necromunda, which was
That was
pretty
good
cool.
fun.
That was fun, yeah.
With
That bloody
10
fan.
players? 10 players, I think.
Yeah,
Eight,
8
9,
to
10
10.
players.
You should share that up, share it to your Patreons or something.
Yeah, no, I did. I put a little reel on up on it, but it's just a didn't get much
The
footage.
scenario, I mean.
Yeah, I will do actually. Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea. Put the scenario. I've
That's
got a
fun.
few custom scenarios I could actually give out. That'd be cool. What else I've been doing? I've been reading, and you'll be pleased to know that I read an AOS book.
Hey.
It's a Warcry AOS book
Hey.
called, what was it called? Richard Strachan, Blood of the Everchosen.
Is that the Catacombs one?
Yes,
Yes.
it's really good.
Yes.
Have you read it?
No, but a lot of these
really
AOS
good.
books are really good.
No, I shit you
Luke's just
not.
like,
And you're
"It's AOS,
gonna
mate."
laugh your fucking head off. There's Stormcast in it, and they're actually really good.
I know. Remember how I
believe
said
I'm
turn
saying
one? I'm like, actually, no. They're actually very interesting as
The
characters.
Sigmarines,
mate.
as you're calling them, when you're like, no, nothing but Sigmarines. Nothing but Sigmarines. That
So-
was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know it was, and things change, and I eat my words and my hat and all sorts. But I mean, they're not the best thing about it. But what I'm saying is they're less linear, more interesting than what I thought.
Yeah.
They're still Sigmarines.
Yeah, no, but it's a bit like how every single one of them has like this faint memory of what they could have
Because
been or what they were.
they keep getting killed over and over again, and each
Yeah.
time they come back, there's something else. They keep losing their old soul.
Because they get smashed in this
They get
airball.
reforged by
Yeah.
these 9 forges or whatever they call
Yeah.
it.
I love that you are reciting pretty much exactly what Glyn told you. He's like, but they lose a bit of their soul. Now you're like, oh yeah, I get it. They lose a bit of their soul.
Yeah.
Every time they die, they come back a little
Oh,
bit different,
mate.
a little bit less.
Well, I'm not gonna.
Wait till you hear about the Stormcast purging. That's what makes it interesting.
Is that where they all just throw up like
Oh yeah.
together? Bulimics, a lot of them. So they can fit into their armour. No, I bet it's a really good book. I recommend it highly. Again, it's Richard Strachan is the guy, Scottish author for Black Raspberry. Don't know what other books he's done, to be honest. I think that's the first book. I don't think he's done any of the Horus Heresy books or
I don't
anything
know.
like that.
I've got a random tangent.
Yeah.
Do you think the Black Library authors are they salary people, or they work like normal authors and
They're
get
contractors.
down payment on
They're
the-
contractors.
They're contractors, yeah.
Like they'll make it a cut per sale.
Yeah, they're
It's like Dan Abner. He does graphic novels and stuff as well.
Dan does all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Down to his mates.
Yeah.
Well,
But if you if you contract, then you just get paid for the work you do rather than the success of the
what was that?
at the creative.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I
imagine
mean?
so.
I was like, if one of these books goes...
Are you
into
a Black
gangbusters-
Library author? Would you like to tell us how
Yeah.
you get paid?
Yeah.
Well, you can tell us by emailing wellywoodwargaming@gmail.com.
So it just fascinates me. I was thinking, because they're pumping out books. And I'm like, are these just employees? Or are they, like if, was it Soul Wars? There's, such a fundamental book, but they would have certain restrictions they would have to abide by, certain law points they'd have to hit.
Well, I think from what I understand, I think they have the novels and everything like that, but then they have like a law master overlooking everything, kind of. I think that's who's employed on a full-time basis, and I imagine that's where I'll talk about it later. I've ordered now. Guys like John Blanche.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
But things like that have law masters that overlook everything to kind of go, hey, this is the kind of track we're going. Be obviously creative, because the upside of these worlds is you can do whatever you want. But things like Soul Wars and things like they're very narrative driven for the whole storyline. Like, this is where we're going in the future. That'll be, I reckon, either they have an internal writer or they have someone go, no, you just have to write this. These are the bits you have to fill in the blanks. But I think those other books, especially that Catacomb stuff, I think they've got a bit more freedom to do what they want with it.
Because it seems to be pretty locked down for the 40k stuff. Or should I say 30k stuff?
Yeah.
All the
30K.
Primark ones, that it seems to be this is the official law. But they're novels, but then how much creative license is involved? Because everyone's no, this is factual, this is canon, this is not.
Yeah, people are really, think about
Passionate.
that. Yeah, very passionate.
Well,
But I feel like in the 40k and AOS, they've got a bit more freedom because it is a breathing world. But stuff like, I imagine we'll have fantasy and 30k, it's like the story's being told. Yeah, there are these in-between bits.
Yeah. Yeah, basically the writers that have written the most volume, Dan Abnett, obviously the ones that have written the most amount of books across all genres within the hobby are the ones that are dictating the law the most, because there's just more of it. And then the other authors have to know it all, because if they don't know it all, they're going to get pretty mixed up with things, I think. Must be really difficult. Must be an absolute minefield of trying to get information. Like, you must write a chapter. As a new Black Library author, you must write a chapter and then have to ask everybody.
I do not
is this all legit, guys?
As sad as it is, that wouldn't surprise me if some authors get death threats because some of the law was different.
Yeah.
That's not accurate.
I'm not even talking about when they finally get it out. I'm talking about just with the other authors. The other authors are like, no, mate, I didn't mean that at all. I actually meant it to be this.
If you have a law master, and you've probably got multiple editors, proofing,
100%.
rewriting, saying, oh no, this is
They have someone write the book and go, well, no, technically this isn't this, and okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I reckon they might come up with the point, these are the law points you need to hit.
Yeah.
And then fill in the blanks.
Here are the models I need to mention.
The models?
Yeah.
Oh, the models are made, and
feel-
they're going to make stories after that.
Do you feel like there is an intrinsic side? Reading a bit of Cursed City, I'm like, oh, okay, they seem to be name dropping the enemies, and I'm like, it's not quite how you'd refer to them.
Yeah. Well, but you're also telling a story about an actual board game. So you can kind of see why they'd kind of do that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, this book, anyway. It's really
Sorry,
good.
anyway.
I didn't want to give anything away about
Welcome
the
to Black
story or
Library,
anything.
the podcast.
But it's really, really good. I mean, I read a lot of books, but I do read a lot of Black Library. But I do find myself getting recommendations from my clients in my day job. Oh, you should really read this book. It's amazing. It's life-changing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, cool. And I'll write it down, and then I'll go home and download a Black Library novel because I can't stop it. It's an obsession, isn't it? But this one was really good. It was a complete departure from me. Normally I read 40k stuff. I haven't read any AOS stuff, so it's the first AOS book that I've read, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good. It's not without fault. Don't get me wrong. It's pretty pulpy. It's very much reminiscent of Conan the Barbarian. It's very Conan-ish, which is a good thing, because I love those books as well. But it's really gory, surprisingly violent. And I actually thought in my naivety that Games Workshop probably would have toned stuff like that down a bit. But there's a lot of faces getting smashed into a pulp and just awful shit, actually, really nasty torture. In fact, there's a Stormcast who tortures a girl in it, nails her to a fucking tree and shit. The tree of woe, basically. It's like, whoa, these Stormcasts are doing it too. These guys are evil too. Okay, sweet.
I think I always say every time you look at the game, it's just there's order, death. They goes, order doesn't mean good guys.
No, it really doesn't.
Nor does it mean they like each other.
No, they're really brutal in it, and they're just fucking merciless. Basically, They don't give a fuck. They're just yep, we're just doing our jobs. We're just doing our jobs. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Recommend it. Catacombs, great. I'm looking forward to more books like that. I don't know if there are any. I did a little bit of research first. I looked out on the internet to see what books were good in the Age of Sigmar thing, and that one was the one that most people seem to rate highly. There's a couple of Warcry YouTubers that we know of that have done reviews on it and said that it was really good as well.
Plague Garden's meant to be good. That's
Plague
going into
Garden?
like the realm of life and into Nurgle's realm.
Might be the same author off the top of my head. I'm not sure.
Possibly. That's
Correct
good.
me if I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, so that's all I've been up to. I think nothing else. I played a little bit of Aeronautica Imperialis, which again I'm kind of sad about because I feel like it's on its way out if it's not already.
You
but talking about
hard on that
Votan
game, didn't you?
Yeah, I really did. I invested in it big time, but really like to play it some more. It was pretty fun. Played a guy at the club, my Eldar against his Navy, and I got absolutely smashed because I'd never played Eldar and I didn't really realise how they worked. So yeah, real finesse you need to play those guys. Pretty cool though, amazing game. But yeah, we'll talk about something else later, which is the reason why it's probably not going to be supported anymore because it's folding into something else. And that's epic. But we can talk about that later on, I suppose. But I think for now, we'll take a little trip down memory lane and talk about old game. I don't know why I've gone all northern, but I have. Shall I do the whole thing as a Yorkshireman?
Please don't.
No, I won't. I'm not very good at that either, so yeah. But someone brought up Chainsaw Warrior a little while ago. And seeing as this is the Blood Bowl episode, which we're supposed to be talking about Blood Bowl, if we ever get onto Blood Bowl at all, I suppose we will. But for now, I thought it would be good to talk quickly about Chainsaw Warrior, which someone did bring up. Now, I'll be honest, I remember the artwork and I remember seeing the box of it, but I actually have no memory of playing the game at all or owning it, so I don't think I played it or owned it. But here's a little bit of information about it. Chainsaw Warrior is a single-player board game designed by Stephen Hand and published by Games Workshop in 1987. I like taking these little trips. It's kind of good, isn't it? Last time we did Talisman. A video game based on the board game was released for mobile and desktop platforms as well. Obviously a lot later on, because 1987 we didn't have those things. But the player in the game has 60 minutes to navigate a labyrinth composed of an abandoned urban slum in New York. So again, like all the old Games Workshop stuff was very much like in America or like in the wastes of America.
Escape from New York or...
Yeah, well, this is definitely taking a lot. It's like that with Evil Dead, basically, and a couple of other things. Represented by 2 decks of cards. Locate the entity Darkness, attempting to destroy the city and kill it. The slum contains hazards, zombies, mutants, and other creatures affected by Darkness, who will attempt to kill the player, and slow him down. Failure to kill Darkness, either by running out of time, dying of injuries, or succumbing to zombie venom, radiation poisoning, results in the loss for the player. The player has several attributes randomised by die roll at the start of the game, which affect hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, ability to take damage, and reaction time. There are also separate tracks to record the effects of zombie venom and radiation damage as well. At the start of the game, the player is equipped with a random assortment of weapons and items, which can include the eponymous chainsaw, of course, and a critical item called the laser lance, which is the only weapon capable of destroying darkness. That's what you used to make that earlier, the laser
Also
lance.
known as a torch.
It was known as a torch.
Destroyer of darkness.
Loss of the laser lance or running out of its ammunition requires the player to leave the slums for a replacement, suffering a time penalty. White Dwarf published a number of variant rules, such as being able to gain additional equipment before entering the slums in return for an expenditure of time and additional weapon and equipment cards. The gameplay is a stylized version of Solitaire, which is quite interesting when you think about it.
Cards?
Like card
exactly,
solitaire.
in that a deck of cards is randomised, but certain items of equipment are required to defeat creatures found later in the game. An online version of the game was coded and designed by Peter Duncanson in 1999. In May 2008, Games Workshop announced it was no longer supporting the site and it was closed. And that was it for Chainsaw Warrior.
Wow.
But there you go. That's a little piece on Chainsaw Warrior there. Just thought it would be good to touch on that, seeing as someone asked about it. Yes, I believe so. 2008.
It used to be, around that time on the web, there's lots of those little interactive HTML games. So not graphic, it was more like forms.
Yeah.
We played like Mafia Wars back in the day, stuff like that. It was great for little RPG tracking. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sounds
very
fun.
cool.
I like the setting.
Yeah, really cool. Like I said, I'd never really remember playing it, but I mean, quintessential early Games Workshop stuff. Man with a flat top, probably, or a Mohican, has a chainsaw, ripping people apart in New York City. That was basically Games
And then
Workshop in
all
the 80s.
randomised as well. Randomised stats, randomised
Random
gear.
as fuck, yeah.
To be honest, I played that game today, so if they brought a new one that's just a man with a chainsaw, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, it'd be awesome. So that's that. That's Chainsaw Warrior. I guess the main topic that we want to probably get onto now is of course Blood Bowl. Each of these episodes we try and focus on one key specialist game. And Blood Bowl is now the topic of conversation. Of course, Rob is kind of the piggy in the middle here in terms of Blood Bowl, because you haven't actually played any at all.
I think that would put me on the outside rather than in the middle.
You can be in the middle if you like.
You're in the middle, mate.
I am in the middle, yeah. But I mean, you're metaphorically in the middle.
Yeah, so it's a game made by Brits on their impressions of American football.
Trying to explain Blood Bowl to
with
Australia.
fantasy creatures. Okay. Is that it?
Has Major Kill done a Blood Bowl by an Australian video?
No idea.
Because I don't think Australians are going to get down with it too much. Unless you watch a
Let's
lot
go
of
fan base here.
NRL.
NRL.
Kind of like Blood Bowl, but
It's
real.
American football, though. It's not far more. With throwing
Yes
forward.
and no. We'll get into it, shall we? We'll get into
There's
it.
no downs.
What?
David, no,
I think David, in terms of like, I don't think he quite understands NRL yet. He's about to head to Sydney. He doesn't quite understand NRL. He's trying to get
I'm
them
still picking
savvy.
a team. I'm still picking a team. I've got 2-3 options to go, and I need to pick
You
a team.
choose Melbourne Storm. You're good. You're
I'm not choosing Melbourne Storm. I'm sorry. It's either Warriors or Eels, mate.
Not Parramatta.
Hey,
Yeah, but they're blue and yellow. I like blue and yellow. And
Yeah,
they're called
gross.
the Eels.
mate,
Gross.
where you're living, you cannot go for Eels. You can go for the Roosters. That's better.
Yeah, you got the Roosters and that's about it.
Anyway.
Nah,
it's not-
mate.
you would never
You're not in
go-
Parramatta.
I'm sorry, you would never go. To
Oh my
Parramatta.
god! You
Okay.
do not say that when you go to Sydney.
Parramatta's a great place.
Fuck it,
mind
I'll
you,
walk around with a
but
Warriors jersey on then.
You're in
Yeah,
the
do
inner
Warriors.
west.
Good,
Okay,
good.
right,
That works.
sweet.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Sweet, I'm doing it. Right. I've said it. I'm doing it. Okay, Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl. So Blood Bowl is the game of fantasy football. Blood Bowl is pretty much my first true love in Games Workshop. It's the first game. I think it's probably the first game I actually played out of any game of Games Workshop's gamership. And
Pantheon of
it has taken on
systems.
a lot of evolution over the years to its current state. It was originally released in 1986 when I was 5 years old. And I think I've said in a prior episode that my cousin had a copy of the first edition and I inherited off him. Tattered old copy of it when I was very young. So around not far after it was released. And it came out with cardboard miniatures in little slotter bases. Yeah, little skeletons and a couple of other little pieces. But essentially, it is, a cross between NFL, so American football, gridiron, and actually rugby, elements of rugby as well in there, I think, crossed with the fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy universe. So it's not Age of Sigmar, because it was prior to that. But it's also not the fantasy universe. It's kind of an alternate fantasy universe. So it's slightly more comedic, slightly funnier.
Slightly comedic. It's entirely comedic.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of chainsaws, bombs, shit like that.
The enemies playing football together.
Yeah. So do you know about the lore? Do you know about the lore of Blood Bowl? Do you know the story behind how the Blood Bowl was
I think we're about to hear a story.
Do you know though?
No.
Because I vaguely know.
I think you're the piggy in the middle here.
Yeah.
I mean, I vaguely know. I haven't done my research on it, but off the top of my head, the lore is that it's an ancient game that was basically uncovered by some dwarves and orcs or whatever, and it's a way to settle battles, kind of like what happened in the Second World War with the football and stuff, on whatever day it was. Anyway, I'm getting off topic again here.
I don't think that's quite how the World War II story goes.
No, you know what I'm saying, though. It's something like that. I don't know.
They played football, it was fine. Germany lost, sorry.
But, so 1986, Blood Bowl came out, which is a long time ago now. Very, very old game. And then the second edition came out in 1988, which is only 2 years after the first edition. First edition was a bit of a mess. I haven't played it again since I was a kid, so forgive me if I don't know everything about it. But I think it was quite a long game. It didn't have turnovers. It was quite complex, like a lot of early Games Workshop games. And like I said, it didn't have actual physical miniatures apart from cardboard. However, they did later bring out a small range of metal miniatures, like 1 or 2 for each faction in it. I think there was like a skeleton, a zombie, things like that, an orc. Second edition came around though, and it was huge. Now I think, really, if we think about it, when you look at the front cover of Blood Bowl on any edition, it's usually Morgan Thorg on the front with a ball, with a Mohican, massive muscles, shoulder pads with spikes, and it's very much WWF wrestling. You know, it was reminiscent of like wrestlers back in the 80s with like, do you know what I mean? Like the muscles and the... So there's elements of
same
NFL.
vibe as Necromunda, that kind of over the top wrestlers.
Yeah, punk,
big
very
spikes,
punk.
punky.
I mean, let's be honest, a little bit of homoeroticism, you know, appealing to
100%.
a teenage audience.
As you said, wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was hugely into wrestling when I was a kid. Like, because I had a friend who had Sky TV, and we used to bundle around there after school, and we used to watch Legion of Doom. And Legion of Doom were literally my favourite fucking guys ever. They still are. Road Warriors to some people. And they were Blood Bowl players. They had spiked NFL shoulder pads, Mohicans, and face paint, and they were just straight out of Blood Bowl. And when some of the initial second edition miniatures came out, they looked like the Road Warriors. They were like, you know, the human team looks like the Road Warriors. So clearly based on WWF wrestling, as well as NFL. The NFL, I remember back in the 80s, again going off tangents here a little bit. I got really into gridiron. Gridiron is my favourite sport. Definitely, I'm a Rams guy.
Oh shit!
Just saying, 100%, massively into it.
Was it?
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to say anything about it. I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Go Birds. Go Birds.
How about you, Rob? Are you into the NFL?
No.
Good, okay.
So.
Rams. So in the 80s, there was a real push outside of America to spread the word of gridiron. In fact, spread the word of American sports in general, Major League Baseball and NBA as well. But I remember that there was a real push in the UK for the NFL to sort of branch out with its merchandising and stuff. I remember having a sticker book for the NFL when I was a kid. And that's how I got into it, just seeing the pomp and ceremony and the bright colours and the crazy stuff. I never watched a game when I was a kid because it wasn't on TV, but I just fell in love with the helmets and everything. And Rams was the team I gravitated to just because of the cool helmets, really. So I think that was obviously, and again, what probably influenced Jervis Johnson, who's the guy who wrote Blood Bowl. It was wrestling. It was very American football and fantasy, all combined into the elements to make Blood Bowl what it is now. So that was second edition, released in 1988. So 2 years after the initial game was launched, and that was a completely different game. It came out with actually like a foam pitch. Have you seen that?
I've heard about it. I've never quite seen it.
You had separate cardboard end zones that you could take off, like presets for the Auckland Raiders, for the Breakland Reavers, for different, you could put your team end zone in there, just like in the NFL. And you had a board that had 3 pieces. So you had a centerpiece and then 2 end zones. And it was made out of foam, astro granite, as it's called in the actual lore. But that was really, really cool. Had loads of pieces, plastic pieces, had orcs and humans in the pieces. And they're actually pretty good models back then as well. And the game, again, was pretty long-winded. The stats were stripped down a bit from the first edition, but it was still essentially not the game that it is at all today. It was quite long. There was no turnover again, so no. I think the turnover system is what makes Blood Bowl such a great system.
Oh, huge.
Before that, it was just chaos, just absolute fucking chaos. People could do all sorts of shit, and nothing failed, basically. Every team had a chainsaw.
That's quite the opposite.
Every team had a chainsaw. Even the fucking elves had a chainsaw back then. So, yeah, it was nuts. They've then released Dungeon Bowl. Dungeon Bowl's pretty cool. So Dungeon Bowl was a different format of playing Blood Bowl. Same rules, but it had pit traps, it had corners, it had all sorts of cool stuff because it's played in a dungeon.
So it's not on a the normal pitch you normally have. It's actually kind of a tile set.
Yeah, it's in a tile set. So it's played in a dungeon.
Literally in a dungeon.
Yeah, and that came out with plastic dwarves and elves, I believe. Now, elves back then, they weren't high elves, wood elves. Dark elves, they were just elves. Well, you did have dark elves, but the elves were just elves, the pro elves, basically. Massive Mohicans and spikes again. They were really cool. Not like the current elves. Which
when did Dungeon Bowl come out?
89.
Ah, okay, so way back still.
Yeah. Then you had Crunch. Crunch was similar to Blitz Bowl now, so it's a stripped back, smaller coffee table version of Blood Bowl. Crunch, pretty cool name, kind of. And that came out in 91. You then had the third edition that came out in 1995. Third edition is what completely flipped Blood Bowl on its head, and that's what basically resembles current Blood Bowl now. So third edition, like I said, introduced turnovers. So what that means is the fail of an action means that it's the opponent's turn instantly. Now you do have other factors in there, so you've got rerolls, you've got other things that you can do to try and negate that, skills, whatnot. But generally speaking, if you fail a thing in Blood Bowl, it's the opponent's turn. And that's really unique. There isn't another game like that Games Workshop have, is there?
That makes sense in like real life playing footy.
Yeah.
And what makes Blood Bowl the best and also the absolute worst game in the world? Everyone says like, "Oh, do you like Blood Bowl?" I'm like, Blood Bowl, Absolutely hate it. Love it.
Yeah, and
Terrible game. Love it.
And as you guys have seen with me, like I think it's more of an extreme with me because I've fallen absolutely head over. I've played nothing else but Blood Bowl for many, many years, and then now I've had this massive hiatus where I haven't actually played at all for a year because I can't fucking stand it, but I still love it. So there's still this love for it underneath, and that's why we're doing this podcast because I think it's around about the time where I'm going to start getting back into it again. Certainly when I move to Sydney, whether it's, I just think it probably won't be in a competitive state. That's all.
I've given your previous state. I highly recommend you don't go into a competitive state.
So, third edition with the element of turnovers being introduced to the game and a much more simplified in terms of the stats, things like that. You only had 4 stats. You had movement, agility, strength, and armor. Those are the only 4 stats in the game. Still are, in fact, although now they've introduced a new stat which pisses me off. I just wish it was 4 instead of 5.
What's the new one?
Passing.
Oh yeah, and there's catching.
No.
Oh, passing. Oh,
Passing.
there's agility. Yeah, roll.
There's a passing stat now.
I like the passing.
But we'll
stat.
get into that in. So, yeah, like I said, 3rd edition came out. I remember it coming out. I was at secondary school. I was in about year 9 of secondary school. I think then 1994. Yeah, year 9. I think I was. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I wasn't there when you were in year 9.
Idea, yeah.
And there was an expansion that came out called Death Zone, and me and my friends went absolutely ham for it. We all loved it. We played shitloads of it. I had every model, every team. I did prefer the 2nd edition models to the 3rd edition models. They were way better, if you ask me. Still are. Jez Goodwin's 2nd edition models are some of the best, I think, Games Workshop's ever produced. Shout out Jez Goodwin. But the 3rd edition ones were a bit derpy, if you ask me. They had really long feet. Don't ask me why, but they all had really long feet.
You know, say people with long feet.
As the comedic value.
You know what they say?
What did you say? Sorry, I missed that.
It adds to the comedic value.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah, it does.
That's what they all say.
So that was 3rd edition. 3rd edition was huge. Like it totally was one of the most popular games that Games Workshop has ever produced, and it didn't get supported. So it came out in '94. It was really strong for a few years, and then it just didn't get supported for a long time. So, of course, it's a fantastic game system, and what happens with Games Workshop games when they become cult classics is the community takes over. So the global community for for Blood Bowl really, really took over with Blood Bowl, mainly because it's quite a simple game. It's quite easy to make content for. It's lots of community teams came out, lots of new rules were written. The forming of the NAF was a thing. So the NAF is the sort of global governing body of Blood Bowl, and it's nothing to do with Games Workshop necessarily. So you can become a member of the NAF right now as well. And that will have your ranking system on it for tournaments, things like that as well. As well as like greeblies and goodies that you get from being a supporter of the NAF. But they're like the governing body of the whole thing. And the living rule book. There's been a living rule book, which there are for many things. I think there's one for Mordheim, isn't there? Like similar sort of thing.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
Broheim,
Broheim, that's it. Yeah. So there's a similar sort of community living rule book that's been going on for the whole time for 3rd edition, basically. And things were tweaked by Jervis himself as well, with the help of the community. And it's been a hugely cult successful game, I suppose, over the years, right up until it got released again when was it released again? It came out 2016 so there's a massive gap between 94 and 2016. That's how long it was supported by the community for. So, of course, when it came out in 2016, they couldn't really change a huge amount without absolute outcry from the community and so many people that plays a World Cup. There's a Blood Bowl World Cup. For those of you who don't know. Happens all over the world, like in different locations, Spain, wherever. There's one in Austria or something.
Wouldn't be called a World Cup without it, so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think any of them have been in Australia.
I'm pretty sure NRL has a world championship, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Probably. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge tournament game. There's a World Cup scene for it. It's massive. It's a really, really big thing. There are tons and tons of third party Kickstarters and manufacturers of teams, and basically the IP has just been, gone out the window, and people just make teams and make their own versions of stuff, and that's been great. And now we find ourselves with a new edition in 2016, which hadn't really changed the game's the mechanics at all. The mechanics were the same. It just brought it out with a new pitch, new rules, really nice new miniatures, so some really cool stuff. I think they had a couple new teams. Maybe I'm not actually sure to be honest off the top of my head.
No, I think not so much like new teams, but like the Khorne one was kind of new. There was the fan-made rules, which is the Khorne Demons, and then this one now is the Khorne one. Was the Norse one? Were they?
Yep, that was a community. So
was a
it's
community
interesting
one.
actually because Games Workshop have looked at what's in the community and basically just replicated it pretty much for 2016's version anyway. There's also been computer games. There's been Blood Bowl 1, 2, and 3. We're up to 3 now on the PC and stuff, and they're actually really good games made by a French studio, I believe. Can't remember the name of the studio, but really good. I've played a little bit of them, but I'd much rather play in person, to be honest, when it comes to something like that. Having said that, there's also Fumble. Fumble is the sort of Java client version, which I've played a lot of. It's really great. You can still play that now. It's got the updated rules on it as well. I played in the Australian League. I played in the New Zealand League and stuff. It's really, really good fun. Really cute little sprites, and you're looking at a top-down version of the
They're very much like the pixel.
Yeah, you can chat in there, and when players die, they just go splat, and there's just blood on the pitch that stays there for the whole pitch. It's pretty cool.
That gives me real like early 2000s internet vibes. Like the online games where it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was fantastic playing. We even had a sort of secret league going on Fumble, which was teams that were entirely made up by the community, that expanded on from the fantasy universe. So you had like all sorts of things, all sorts of there was like Henry teams, there's all sorts,
As previously talked about in a previous episode, where you're like, I'm going to talk about Secret League. Like, got another episode, and here we are.
I won't talk too much
all the
about
way
Secret
around.
League.
And now we finally get to it. He's not going to talk much about it. There we are.
But yeah, it's essentially what Secret League is a secret, so I'm not going to tell any of you.
Secrets.
So that's that. So computer games, there was card games, there was Blitz Bowl, which was a modern version of Crunch, which we spoke about earlier. Shitloads of supplements, shitloads of stuff. And here we are with a new edition fairly recently, second season, Blood Bowl second season. I know it's not new, but to me it's new because I'm old. And when did that come out? 2020. So 3 years ago. I think that's new. That's
so
new.
If you go to G-Dubs right now,
yeah,
you'd see Blood Bowl second.
You'd see Blood Bowl second season. That would come with Imperial Nobility and Black Orcs, which are two entirely new teams which have never been in the game at all.
Really? Black Orcs? Black Orcs are a bit of a throwback. I remember Black Orcs in
so I'm not sure what the lore is behind the new game, but I haven't played it since the second season has come out. I stopped.
Oh, really?
No. So I haven't played second season at all.
Wow.
So I haven't played since they implemented the passing stat.
He was hurt. He was hurt bad.
I was hurt so badly by the passing stat.
Is this another Stormcast situation? Like, the game's terrible because it has passing stat. And he's going to play, it's like, I played this game and the guy had a couple of good passing stats. It's a really good addition to the game. Wow.
Great stat passing. Great stat.
I'm such a dick. I am. Thanks for that.
Can't wait. Fast forward 4 weeks.
I know. It's like, So I played this, second season recently.
My face is hurting from smiling too much.
So I
which
ended
I
up
suppose
buying
is a good
second
thing.
season. Oh my god, it's so good.
That passing stat. Oh,
Here are my 6 teams I've acquired.
we're done. I think we're done now. Yeah. You may continue.
Yeah. So I've just been bullied, basically. I've been sat here and I've been bullied the whole time, and I'm not just leave now. I just leave my own house. Leave you two to it. No, it's all good. But Blood Bowl, where was I?
Up to now.
We're up to second season.
Present day.
I haven't played second season. Glyn, you have played lots of it.
Yep.
Where do we begin? I mean, that's just the history of Blood Bowl, like in its development. But let's talk about the actual game for those uninitiated people and for those who've played lots of it as well, because I imagine there are people listening at the moment who've never played Blood Bowl and might be wanting to get into it. Mm-hmm. How do they get into it? Obviously, they go and pick up second season, which is an expensive box, so you don't have to have that. You can get by with just a pitch, some dice, a team.
To be honest, by the time if you'd like the teams themselves, you can get by just like buying a dice, buying the teams and stuff. I think by the time you get all that together, you probably would have been cheaper just to buy the box anyway. Because I did that. I went the route of just like, I'll just buy my own team. And I think by the time I bought a pitch, some dice, and a team, like I could have got all that plus the rule book, plus all that sort of stuff. So I think it actually is good value, personally. I think considering it comes with the rule book as well.
Oh yeah,
What are we talking
totally,
about?
it's totally good value.
Australian dollars.
$200.
Oh, okay. So less than most of the other box sets.
But you're looking at
the reason why is it doesn't have any scenery. But it doesn't have any plastic scenery. It's basically just a cardboard pitch and some markers and tokens.
How many aside? We're talking like 6 aside, 9, 12?
11 aside.
Okay.
But you generally have probably 12 in the box set on a sprue, maybe more, maybe 16. I'm not sure, but you have 16 max, 11 on a pitch at a time, unless that's changed. I don't think it has. And you have a little plastic ball. I don't use the plastic balls because I'm an elitist. I use a special coin that I have for loose and
I'm sure that's illegal in the second season.
Yeah. Well, everyone people uses there's a nice little one is poker chips. They're good.
Yeah, underneath the base. Yeah, pretty cool. So you haven't played before.
No.
Why?
Because it looks a little bit too British humour.
Yeah.
For my liking. I'm like, I like a little bit of levity, but I like my shit serious as well. I kind of look at Blood Bowl, I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
It's not grimdark.
It's the extreme opposite.
Absolute opposite.
It's not.
It's probably just too camp.
But I think but that leads into the rules of that. So
too camp.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a line.
That's why I've bounced off it. Like I'm sure if I actually played it, I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, you will.
But I'm just like, why the fuck have you got elves and orcs playing footy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's fine.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good question. I can't really answer that. But what I can say is that it is a phenomenal game. I mean, it really
love it.
is. Like it's
at the local club. You've got diehards.
Yeah, so at the club every week. There's usually about now that a new season start.
I would
the Victoria Bitters.
I would say
Blitzers. Sorry, Victoria Blitzers. Sorry, I take that back. Usually about 6 games going every week.
I would say that it's. I'm going to guess it's a bold statement, but I'm going to guess that it's probably the most widespread global specialist game that there has ever been.
From a specialist game, yes.
By far, much more so than Mordheim, more than Necromunda, because it is more accessible, I think. And a lot of people who aren't into Games Workshop play it, and that's what you're saying there. You're into the grimdark lore and the universe and stuff. It is outside of that. It's on the periphery.
I can totally get them. Sports are accessible.
There are people that only play the computer game version of it. They've never played the miniatures game version of it, which is the same thing. They're just playing it on the. No, I'll never play with the miniatures, but I'll play it on the computer.
I've seen some sick setups, so some pictures.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple of custom ones. I'm pretty sure there's someone brings in like a briefcase thing.
Yeah, one guy's got the briefcase. Another guy's made an actual stadium that goes about yay high, about a couple of feet high.
Yeah, I played it at a
tournament. And he's made. What do? You end up making sponsors on the sides with all of the taking the piss out of like existing ones. He then made flags for the current season. I think he's got like premieres. Yeah, that's what it's like, and he actually has it hanging, so he adds one every year.
That's awesome.
I think that's where the fun part. I think you get that same fun part where you get with Necromunda, where in terms of like, you're making terrain, but the terrain doesn't affect the pitch, so all it is just fun things.
Yeah.
So like things like you can get like cheerleaders in the game, and like some people actually make custom models. You don't need it. It's like literally all it is like you have 2 cheerleaders. I'm like, cool, that's done. Whereas some people actually like to make the models on it because it's a little fun thing on the sideline.
Yeah, totally, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, my reroll counters were always novelty things as well. So like I had my corn team had kittens for reroll counters, like little fluffy kittens and stuff. You can do shit like that. And it is a silly game, and you've got to have a silly mentality to play it.
It has the same kind of vibe of Necromunda in terms of like it encourages doing fun things with it. I find
Necromunda. I'm sorry, Blood Bowl is best played kind of torn here. It's best played in a campaign setting, like Necromunda, I think is. Playing
in a league.
Yeah, you play. Yeah, exactly.
League.
Sorry, league. So that's what it's called in that. Where your players advance and develop, they get new skills. Exactly the same as Necromunda or Mordheim, something like that. Yeah. They get experience or SPP, star player points instead of experience, and they can buy skills with that. They've actually changed that mechanic a lot for the new version of the game, by the way. Yeah, the way that you buy skills is completely different to how it was before. It's different. I've been reading up about it.
Everyone I've known, they said, like, it's very different. I look it up and, like, it's more or less the same, they've just changed it slightly.
Are you talking about second season?
Second season versus first season.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but, yeah.
It is terrible. Second season's terrible.
It is different.
Passing stat, oh my God.
So, the weather table's quite different. The injury table's quite different. It's harder to die now.
You now get broken shin instead of a broken knee.
You say harder to die, but the amount of guys I had die on my team.
Yeah, well, it's still an element of it, but it's harder than it was before. It used to just be you roll a 6 on a d6 and you're dead. That's a 1 in 6.
Back in my day.
I'm being bullied.
Back in my day, it was a 6. Now it's a 5 or 6.
What the hell's going on here exactly?
There you go, Jordan Peterson. Why is Jordan Peterson on pad? I have no idea. Where was I before you rudely interrupted me and started bullying me?
Oh, you were talking about how terrible second season was.
I wasn't actually. I wasn't. All I'm saying is that it's different. I haven't played it yet.
Best played in an ongoing narrative.
It is, yeah. Or in a tournament setting where I've played lots of tournaments. In fact, I've probably
makes sense, right? It's a fucking sports game.
Yeah.
It is, and I've been to lots of tournaments, and I've thoroughly enjoyed most of them. Not all of them,
except the one.
And it's what's
two we've only learned.
What's particularly great about Blood Bowl is the community is excellent, just like Necromunda. In fact, the community out there is brilliant. Everybody's lovely, and it's really social. And everyone these tournaments are usually in pubs where everyone gets pissed as fuck. In fact, Blood Bowl players, and you know this if you're a Blood Bowl player out there, are the biggest drinkers in the entire of the hobby realm. There is nobody who gets as fucked at tournaments than Blood Bowl players. Like 40k players, sorry mates, you got nothing on this. Blood Bowl players are usually spewing in between turns, sitting down again. Am I just talking about New Zealand Blood Bowl? Maybe I don't know.
Maybe just New Zealand. Because it's very much.
Simon, you're not. You haven't. We don't know you as a particularly big drinker.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is where I had the advantage.
Is this where the falling out? Is this when the drinking stuff? It's that one tournament.
I've got a friend. I've got a friend who I played at an Auckland tournament. You know who you are, and he was so drunk. In fact, two friends who were out all night. It was a weekend tournament. They were both out for 3 days straight, drinking non-stop for the entire tournament. One of them ended up, I think, winning the tournament or coming second. A major tournament in Auckland. And the other guy I played, and he could barely see while I was playing him. Like he's literally like spewing outside, and then he's like ended up just calling the game as sitting outside on a sun lounger and falling asleep, and it was just hilarious. But that shit happens at every single tournament. Like something weird happens. People go to a strip club, get lost, and don't turn up for the first game the next day. Whatever. Like it's just funny.
What are these tournaments you're going to? I haven't heard any of this.
It's great.
At the end of the day, like essentially what makes Blood Bowl so good is a really good beer and pretzels game.
It is.
As in you can turn up, you can just go grab a pint, have some food, have a chat, and just roll some dice, and you get it done in the same night. You're not a situation of, you struggle. It can go for a long time, and I think especially if you're playing with new people.
Your typical,
and I think it all depends on who you play with as well.
I mean, the tournament players play real fast because they're used to playing, so that you're getting through a game, and it has to be under 2 hours. Really, you've got an allotted time of 2 hours, typically at an NAF tournament, and you're bringing in chess clocks if you're taking any time over than that. So you've got 4-minute turns, etc., which is good. I play super fast in most games, but a game of Warcry is 45 minutes most of the time. A game of Blood Bowl is typically, I would say, around about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Well, closer to 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. I mean, you could play one, but there's 2 halves of 8 turns, so 16 turns in total. And within those turns, you're moving all your players. And if you're doing everything right and you're not fucking up, then those turns go longer. The more you fuck up, the more the turns are shorter, and the shorter the game is as a result.
So you can literally do I'm going to move this one guy, and it's like he has an agility roll of 2+. I'm like, so I can do this extra thing. So I was roll a 2. You roll a 1. You're like, it's all right. I've got a re-roll, and you roll a 1. That could have been the first move for the turn. Yeah. Because you failed that. That's it. That's your turn now. You can't move anyone else. Anything that no one else could have done.
It's turnover.
So that's why the game's like so brutal. Because you could have the best intention. I have someone who sat there for about 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and talk about this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this guy to here, this guy to here, this guy to here. I'm like, all I have to do is do a 2+. 1. He's like, I spent more time explaining what I was going to do than actually doing it.
So the way that once you played a little bit, you get familiar with probability. You get familiar with the chances of doing things. This is a 1 in 36. This is a 1 in whatever. You know all that stuff in your head anyway. So when you're playing games, you're familiar with all the probability of the rolls that you're making. So you're always weighing that up as well. It's like gambling, I suppose. But at the same time, you're also limiting the amount of risk involved in stuff. So in a turn, you will look at your pieces or your players on the board, and you'll go, okay, which players aren't at any risk of failing anything? Okay, this guy can move, this guy can move, this guy can move. Before I do any dice rolling, I'll do all of my safe moves. So most of your team will do the safe moves, then you'll go and pick up the ball, make a pass, do whatever. So there you go. That's basically the essence of Blood Bowl. You've then got star players, special characters like Dramatis Persona that you get in Necromunda that you can hire for games. You get injuries, skills, all sorts of stuff. Weather events, just loads of cool chaotic shit. You get dirty tricks and things as well in the new version.
Of course.
Yeah. They still remained.
Yeah. No, otherwise, goblins wouldn't be there.
Yeah. And Blood Bowl also has a really good inducement system, so it's a balancing mechanic for Blood Bowl. So if you go into a game and you're missing a few players, and your opponent's got a bigger team rating than you get the difference made up in cards, tricks, wizards, all sorts of shit. So you can lightning bolt the ball carrier, for example, things like that.
So essentially what happens is, like, say if you start a game and one person's worth 120 million and yours is worth 90 million, you've got like 30 million there to work with. And they have things where, like, oh, you can spend, X amount of gold and you get an extra reroll for this game, or you might be able to hire a certain, like, fun thing, like you said, as a wizard to lightning someone. So it's kind of good, or you could even hire a star player. So it's kind of like if you're, especially it works really well in a league. If you're on the bottom of the ladder and that person's at the top, they've gone so well. You're like, cool, I'm just gonna bring these star players, and now we're on an even playing field. Yeah, and it's not like this constant like dragging and bringing yourself up.
So it's kind of almost always an even playing field. However, generally those teams that are the more developed with the more skills and stuff are going to trump the teams that are lower value with the star players and everything, because that's just how it is.
But also with dice rolls, the dice rolls are so brutal. You could have the perfect team with the perfect game plan, and it all goes to shit as soon as you roll one thing.
Yeah. So, the long and short of it is that it's a fantastic game that I would recommend anyone to get into. It can be incredibly merciless and brutal, and it is. I've seen people walk away from the game for life and never go back to it.
Hint, hint. And I think that's why I don't like the competitive part of it, because I like playing the game when something bad happens to me. I'm like, this is why I love the game. It's like the amount of time I've had someone who's just tried to do advanced, essentially like. If you're next to someone, you can jump out and you have to do a roll. I rolled it. I failed. He fell over. I rolled terribly. He killed himself. Trying to walk slightly sideways, he ended up actually killing himself. And I was like,
that shit
and I was like, this is hilarious. This is one guy. All he do is try to walk sideways, and he killed himself.
Yeah. So I mean, but I guess like anything, like any other game, like Kill Team, like 40k, you can become overtaken by competitiveness, and you can become a really good player. Like it's almost like chess. So Blood Bowl is a bit like chess in that you've got a gridded system and you're moving pieces around on it, and each of your pieces have different stats, just like your chess pieces do. To a certain degree, you're going to have one player that's better than the rest of them, and that's your queen, and la-di-da, you're going to protect your ball carrier, which is your king. So there's a lot of crossover with a game of chess, perhaps. There's just a hell of a lot more randomness to it too.
Yeah, chess ain't got no dice.
Well, this is it. And chess, if you fuck up, it's your own doing. That's your own mistake. You can't, but you can be an incredibly good Blood Bowl player and still fuck up,
But that's what makes it... yeah.
I'm seeing his vision get a little bit blurry. A blood mist is starting to descend.
Oh, I was never that good, but
But that's why it's a sport.
Yeah,
and that's how sport works.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think the other thing about Blood Bowl as a game system is it's very addictive, like really addictive. Don't you think? You want to just play more, like.
I enjoyed when I was in the league.
Glenn's got a blank face right now.
I find it very, very addictive sort of game.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I said once the league goes, I'm like, oh cool, I'm ready, looking forward to the next game. It's mainly because the advancements and they have the league system's like probably the best campaign system out of any game I've played. They do a real by far. It does such a good job because you can make your lower guys actually become these really good guys. There's a story to be told about someone every time. Yeah. And the things like you can do bounty systems. So if there's one guy who killed one of your guys, you're like, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Like, 100K for anyone that kills this one guy. But so the league advancement happens, and then it's kind of, then you actually have seasons. So you have like this same team that could go next forward. I think the campaign system is really good, but that's what I find. Whereas the tournament side, I have no fun.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's Blood Bowl. Have you got any more questions about it? It'd be good if you wanted to ask anything about it, because I mean, as someone who's
I guess the one thing we didn't talk about was actually how the game actually works. So essentially, all it is there's you've got 11 people on the pitch, exactly like American football. So you start at the halfway line. They're on one side, you're on the other side. The ball gets kicked every time to the other team. They receive the ball and they have to run it to the other side. They keep the ball until it's not a thing where all of a sudden when it goes the other turn, they get the ball back. It's until there's a turnover, which is when you fail something. That's only when the ball comes over and the ball comes loose, and so the other team has to pick it up. So that's essentially how it works. But it's just them driving their way through. It's not like American football or rugby league, It's not like Loig in terms of like you only have 4 downs. It's just you hold on to the ball as long as you can. And so then you got the tactics things where you have like a player in the center and you're surrounded by your strong players so you can move down. And so there is some
Building a
strategy.
cage.
And then building a cage, but then there's like obviously each team are very unique about the different things. So I've naturally I went with the Corn team.
Because you're mental.
Yeah, and so their unique things is called frenzy, and all it means normally you can just like do a block, which is like a hit, and you have to roll for that, and then that's done. What frenzy means is like you hit, and then you have to hit that same person again. You have to.
You don't get the option.
And so you can get yourself in a bad position, that sort of thing. But like every team has their own really unique rules, and they play completely different. And this is quite fun. And but essentially all it is you've got you have 2 games of 2 halves. There's 8 per half.
8 turns.
So 8 turns per half. Everyone, both sides get it. It's not like one person holds onto the ball and the other person doesn't get to play. And you just have to score a touchdown, and then once the touchdown happens, you can kick the ball back again. So
cool.
it's 100% just a sport. That's all it is.
He's talking about touchdowns as if everybody likes to score touchdowns. Half the teams don't care about scoring touchdowns. They're there to bash the other team into non-existence so that they can't score any touchdowns, so that they can just walk it in and score and win 1-0.
So there's tactics, especially like things like something like a Black Orc. Black Orc teams are about like, I'm going to kill as many guys as I can. So then when it gets to the second half, I can just walk it in because you've got no players to play.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got some things like you got
Skaven elves.
The Dark Elves where they're really agile, and so they can actually like jump into a tackle zone and then jump out. So tackle zone is like you got like 1 square around a single person, so they can jump in and jump out. So like you have tactics. So you're like, oh, this works for me, but then all of a sudden you're playing a team where they can just jump out easily. Like, oh,
do you know
I thought that was covered. Oh,
this is fucked up, and this is actually a really good question for anyone who's played any tournament or just played more than 1 game in a day. When you play 3 or 4 or 5 Blood Bowl games in a day, not only by the end of it have you got a banging headache because you've been thinking so hard about your strategy and stuff, but what happened to me when I used to play like long tournaments is I used to go away that night and actually dream about assists and tackle zones in my daily life. So I'd be walking around in my job and like thinking, you're there, right? And I'd view you as, you know, like
it's a one-on-one tackle,
you're in my
no
tackle
assists.
zone.
although there's the assist there because if you try to tackle.
And I'd be thinking about numbers and probability and shit just based on that. So I'd be like, literally walking down the street after a tournament and it would be like my tackle zone. Thinking about who's where to assist me and shit is so weird. So weird. That's just what happens when you focus so hard on something for ages.
It's good fun. It's a fun game, especially if you love sports. I'm not saying you have to like sports to enjoy this game, but if you have kind of that sport mentality, which I think is obviously very much an Australian thing, I think we very much like sports.
Yeah. You're saying that Australians are the only ones that like sports?
No, but it's kind of built into the culture of like it's like you would notice when you move to Melbourne, they say, "Oh, what team do you go for?" Yeah, it's like even my wife doesn't even like sports, but she has a team.
Ironically, people probably out of any subgroup in Australian culture, probably like tabletop gaming hobbyists are the least likely. To
100%, the least likely
to be sports lovers.
Yeah. You
but it's still kind of ingrained. Like everyone I know that played Blood Bowl, they're like, oh yeah, I like this.
Yeah,
it's the one person I talk about American football every time plays Blood Bowl. So
yeah. But I think if you're looking to get into it, you can get into it a number of ways. You can play the physical game. You can play Fumble, which is incredibly easy and free to get into. You can play the computer game, Blood Bowl 3 that we're now on, which is much better looking, but Fumble's just better. It just is. Better community, nicer players. And you can join a league online or in person. Pretty much anywhere. You might live in Kuala Lumpur. You might live in fucking anywhere. There's going to be a league somewhere. Pretty much. Because I was really concerned when I moved to Wellington from London. So shit, there's not many people in New Zealand. There's only 5 million people there. You know, will I find enough people to play Blood Bowl? There was already a league in Wellington that had 20 people in it. You know, so yeah, pretty healthy scene globally, and it's not going anywhere. It's only getting more popular. So there you go. That's Blood Bowl. I think that's. I'm exhausted about Blood Bowl now.
You actually have to play a game.
Yes, I will, and I really want to. And yes, as soon as I get to Sydney, I'm gonna get back on it. I actually left my Blood Bowl shit in Wellington though, in my garage, so I haven't got any teams. I've got a beautiful custom Dark Elf team. I've got a really nice.
I hear second season only costs $200.
Yeah, it's $200 I can't afford, unfortunately. But it is what it is, eh?
By the time you buy all the stuff, it's going to be more economical just to buy the box.
The only thing I would say about Blood Bowl is that the literature the novels that they've written about Blood Bowl are not very good. So, Black Library, really good at 40k, really good at necromunda, really good at all the other shit.
I'll be completely
Don't read
honest.
any Blood Bowl.
I'll be completely honest. When you started mentioning like, the Blood Bowl lore, do you know the background? I'm like, I didn't know there was any Blood
Well,
Bowl.
there you go.
I know there's the amazing comics. They're amazing, but that's about the extent.
Yeah,
Nor would I think like it's not a game to have lore.
Doesn't need
It's
it.
really not. I'm pretty sure like they actually have like pseudo TVs. I'm like, that's not really fantasy like, but
Yeah.
You say that, but the lore that Blood Bowl does, the richness that comes from the appeal, what the real appeal for Blood Bowl initially was the illustration, and that partly is lore. So do you know what I mean? Like,
aesthetic and art direction aren't, I would say, different to law.
aesthetic art
they
direction
come hand
like-
in hand, don't they?
I mean, petrol-driven chainsaws probably don't fit into the law too much.
They do.
No, there's. I'd say they're more like there's like kind of stories or some backgrounds and things, but I wouldn't say lore. I think lore is the wrong word, to be honest. Personally.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
Because lore is something like there's a rich backstory where I could spend, really imagine myself in this like. Have you don't really hearing about stories
Lore
but
is-
outside the stadium in these back rooms, like we hear about these things moneyballing their way through, and like you're not hearing about these heroic managers that have like gone through the corporate system and doing that. No,
So there's actually, I downloaded it recently. I haven't had a proper look at it, but there's a book that someone's written, which is, well, basically they've compiled all of the actual season lore that you get in some of the books that about all the teams, like Auckland Raiders. Massive section about all their wins and losses and their tournament results and their best players, and there's a huge book that I just downloaded a PDF version of with all of that information in it. So it is there. It's just not the same kind of lore. It's not really lore.
it's just fun things. It's creating like a history of a club, not so much the lore of the club.
Yeah. When they were founded, who founded them?
Yeah.
Best players, worst players. Shit like that.
It's the equivalent of like going to a lawn bowls club and seeing like the board of like these are the presidents since 1932. Like I wouldn't exactly say I walked in like the lawn bowls club lore is actually quite interesting.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. Yeah,
A rich tapestry.
Yeah. Actually, it was a tapestry. No.
Right, we should move on from Blood Bowl. I think we've had enough time on Blood Bowl for now. We'll come back to it at some other time, I'm pretty sure, but it's good to talk about it, I think. And you need to play it. I need to get back into it. You need to just keep enjoying it. Yeah. That's that.
Minutes side.
Yeah. Other things to talk about, though. Something big happened last week. John Blanche retired.
John Blanche!
Yeah, John Blanche retired. Yeah, big deal, really. We all know who he is. If you don't know who John Blanche is, he was, I think, the art director for Games Workshop, pretty much, whatever the actual role was. But one of the greatest, if not the greatest, illustrators of ever in anything, I think. And also
definitely for this, this kind of extended hobby.
I mean, if you were a fine artist, it's not, it's a very particular art style that John Blanche has cultivated.
I think his art has influenced.
Oh shit! It is 40k. It's Games Workshop.
It's kind of interesting place because obviously it's done from a commercial format. It's selling game systems.
Yeah.
But it's almost pop art in the sense of the reach it's had.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly atmospheric.
Oh,
and had an influence on me without knowing.
Fuck yeah! Especially for you, probably Mordheim. It's probably where you first saw it, right?
Battlefleet Gothic. I remember there's a heap of that about that.
Yep.
Some of the old 40k stuff. Some of the old fantasy stuff as well. A little bit less on the fantasy stuff, but it was out there. And it's just so rich in mood.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I actually didn't realise he was still working for Games Workshop.
Yeah, you said that too.
I said the same thing. Yeah.
I did because I saw him on a podcast a little while ago, a Games Workshop podcast where he was literally doing live drawing and shit, and it was like, wow, it's up somewhere online.
They've obviously moved away from using his aesthetic as customer facing.
Yeah,
his
so he was
He'd be
still
more
he was
the
still an
overseer.
advisory role, but I don't know I can't actually remember how many years he's been working for them, but it's a long time. And just what a fucking legend, really. Like, I just wanted to give a moment. It's not like he's died or anything. He's still alive and he's still working, doing art, I imagine, but huge influence on my life, like massive influence on my life. Him, Ian Miller, and Pete Nifton, actually, who did a lot of the Blood Bowl stuff. Those three guys, I mean, Pete Nifton's very different to the other two, don't get me wrong, much more comic style, but no less amazing, But yeah, just a huge, that's the reason how I got into the whole thing, Realm of Chaos books back in the day. just all those amazing illustrations.
That was the first codex or battle tome that I had, actually.
Realm of Chaos.
Yeah, it was like the real fat one. It had
Hardback.
I didn't know it was soft, but it had like the demons, it had beastmen, and it had chaos warriors. And it had Blanche stuff in it. It also had a lot of like pencil illustrations.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure
Black
who
and
did
whites.
those. Yeah, little black and whites throughout the copy. It was fucking thick too, the book.
Well, there were two
pour over
hardbacks
it.
that came out with Rogue Trader and second edition 40k and fantasy, and they crossed over and they were for both systems.
This was definitely fantasy.
This is later.
And this would have been mid to late 90s.
Maybe they used the Realm of Chaos, the title, again later for something else. I don't know.
It was whatever the chaos fantasy book.
Yeah,
it had all the rule stats and
Yeah.
But yeah, it was massive. It had so much work in it. It was great.
Yeah. But I think we can all agree, yes, John Blanche's input on our lives and the hobby in general has been absolutely huge. What an amazing, amazing guy. So, round of applause for John Blanche. A round of applause. Yeah, don't think he'll be listening to this one now. Unfortunately, it's too big. It's too big for us.
He's still pretty active in.
He is
Warhammer
pretty active,
community,
actually. Yeah,
actually.
the
Warhammer
Ink,
Facebook groups.
Ink 28.
Big one.
Yeah, he's on the Ink 28 thing as well. But yeah, still involved very much so. But not just as an illustrator, but also painted and converted some really cool shit back then, and used to use all sorts of weird painting techniques and methods that always just set him apart from everyone else. And the articles in White Dwarf that I used to just remember seeing his stuff next to everyone else's stuff, and just how different it was to everybody else's. Was just like he'd always push it way out to new territories. And of course, the style of Blanchitsu came out of that as well. But I think we'll leave that for another episode, talking about Blanchitsu, because it's an entire episode's worth, really, isn't it? To be honest. The other thing that's happened, something that I touched on earlier, was the epic rumours. You seen that?
No,
No, I haven't seen any of that.
You haven't seen it at all?
no.
So they reckon you know what happens with these leaks from Games Workshop? Like, there's a leak. There's been a leak about Epic 40k, or actually more specifically Epic Heresy, which is a smaller scale 40k, I suppose. And we've had it before. Games Workshop had Epic before back in the day, and it was how many millimeters?
10 mil.
Like a Marine was that?
I want to say 10 mil, something like that.
I remember you could get
centimetre.
like
Bases with like 5 guys on
they
it.
were like exactly. They're like 4 mil high.
Yeah.
An actual Space Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it meant
You
was
just have a shitload of Land Raiders.
Yeah, you did, yeah. Tanks, Baneblade,
And
like shitloads
runners,
of Baneblades and stuff like that. But I used to play it, and it was a fantastic game, and I'm really excited about them bringing it back again. But apparently there's a lot of stuff to suggest that they're bringing it out. Unfortunately, and something that does piss me off a little bit, is that it might be sort of taking the place of Aeronautica, because Aeronautica and Adeptus Titanicus are the same scale as Epic.
Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
Really?
Oh, no, maybe not. No, what am I
No.
talking
I can't
about?
imagine, because Titanicus are they're like this big, and I can't imagine the planes are bigger than Titans.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Fuck, maybe I'm wrong.
Definitely.
I don't know.
No, definitely different scale. 100%. The planes
Yeah,
would
true.
be the
true.
size of like 15 tanks.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I just can't remember how big stuff was when I was a kid, you know?
Different scale though.
So I'm talking shit. That's fine. But there are rumours that Epic's supposed to be coming out again. Apparently it looks like it's Heresy. It looks like there's a box set that's supposed to be coming out.
Heresy setting is very different though, because you've got no Xenos, right? It's
Yeah.
pretty much all going to be Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines. And even in a Chaos, quote unquote.
It's just weird, because we already have this Heresy game. I suppose the game mechanics will be very different, but
I think you got to look at the other way around. Like it's another specialist game.
they can't really bring everything.
You can't
out,
just
can
bring
you?
everything, as in like it can't. It's probably someone's like, what do you call it, project, passion project.
Yeah.
This kind of comes to life. At least then, if you're just like, all right, they're just Marines, then you can make every single chapter you whatever want to do.
Yeah.
And they're the same Marine.
Exactly. You've got like 10 different casts, and then whatever the fuck you paint them, there's all your
But there's going to be some monsters that go like, we're going to play that, but on the
Couple
normal
of
scale.
demons, yeah.
Oh, no, on the normal scale.
Yeah. But anyway, the game back when was really fucking cool, and it allowed you to play a sort of version of 40k, but much more, same table size, but you had 10 times as many troops, 10 times as many tanks, things like that. So if that appeals to you and that scale appeals to you, then it's really, really good. It meant that painting was kind of easier in some ways. You didn't have, I mean, they're not that detailed, you know, the 10 mil guys.
I'm curious how the contrast paints will work with those.
I think
contrast, straight contrast, and
an accent color, and that's it.
That's
like your dry brush sorted. I mean, the vehicles will be more engaging to paint, but the actual troops, like little tiny Space Marines, will be pretty easy. You know, you're not going to get them under a microscope.
You know
and
what?
Get a tiny
I
brush.
feel like that particular format are in great risk of 3D printing alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it's funny you should say
that's why I reckon there'll be limited investment from G-Dubs, because it's not that hard to sculpt up a rhino, you know, like for someone to make that model.
And they're not in high detail.
No. And then you're going to print them, you can print a whole army on one build plate, so it costs $3.
Let's be honest, I'm already seeing that with Aeronautica. There's a lot of people already in Reddit and whatnot printing out very, very similar designs to the Aeronautica stuff, like a bit too close, actually.
Well, no, I mean...
It's going to happen. If the game doesn't get supported, then it's going to happen as well. It has to, because...
It's going to happen. It happens in 40K, like especially for mechanical things.
Yeah.
Like sculpting up a vehicle is a lot more achievable than sculpting, you know, a hyper-dynamic human with expression. It's a lot easier to make clones or proxies.
Yeah, certainly is. But I honestly, I can't actually remember the actual mechanics of the game, or whether it was more complicated or less. I think it was less complicated than 40K, but I remember you had almost like physical cards that you had in the box set for each thing, like tanks and squat land trains, things like that. Pretty cool. You had squats back then as well. It was really good. Big, massive guys on bikes that were like this tiny. Really cool. But yeah, you're right. There are actually a bunch of people making 10mm scale stuff. I've actually been talking to a guy called Chris from Wakes Emporium. So shout out to Chris from Wakes Emporium. About some interesting ideas that he might have going forward, and I might be helping him out a little bit with some of those ideas. But watch the space on that. I don't want to give too much away, but check out Wakes Emporium, a little Facebook group there as well, and he's got quite a lot of stuff out already. You should check it out, actually, both of you. Does a Star Wars what's the game called?
Shatterpoint, the one that just came out?
No, the miniature game, the skirmish game.
Legion?
Yes, Star Wars Legion, but 10mm figures.
How big's that? That's tiny.
All the factions and stuff.
10 mils tiny. Okay.
Yeah. But you play it on a board
like 28 mil, 10 mil.
So
It's like, oh.
I think what I've seen a few different skirmish games converted effectively from imperial to metric, and that I think equates to a 10mm. So an inch becomes a centimetre, and then like a kill team board ends up being in imperial, like a foot long.
Yeah, and you play it literally on a coffee table. I've been thinking about it a lot, and
I've seen it as hyper portable format.
Can you imagine doing that for Necromunda or Warcry?
Warcry, easy.
I mean, Necromunda, the thing I think about is the scenery.
I think I might have seen someone already do that. They're talking about doing travel Necromunda.
Well, the problem with Necromunda that I've found, particularly now that I've downsized and I don't have a big garage, is that I don't have anywhere to store all the stuff. Like, the scenery takes up a lot of space. If I did that a fraction of the size and had like fucking 5-story buildings, but that were there with this big, that's really cool. The problem, I suppose, is just tiny little villagers moving them around the board and trying to get down there and looking for like line of sight and stuff becomes difficult.
I reckon the gameplay totally achievable. I think it's just 100%. A big hobby time investment because you don't have to make it all. Yeah, or you're going to have to print it all.
Or you just print it all. If someone's making the miniatures, you print it all out and you have a pocket version of Necromunda.
But does that kind of kill then the whole point of Necromunda, where it's these, you've got these big pieces of scenery that makes it a bit more epic in terms of that. Obviously, having the travel stuff and obviously less thing, but I find the lure of Necromunda is like these big terrain pieces and these things. Like, I find that's the lure. As soon as you get something small, you're like, then you can be a bit more tactical. I'm like, well, I'd rather play something like Kill Team that's actually balanced for that kind of game.
That's fair.
That's my personal opinion. I can see definitely the need for it.
Mixed feelings about it, but I think the idea is quite exciting.
I think if you put it custom format works if it is a set condition, probably more like a Blood Bowl, where you're like, okay, I've personally made 4 teams and a small pitch we can all play.
Yeah.
Whereas Necromunda is very much around everyone brings their own, their own gang with their own flavour and their own hobby interests.
And I think, again, the other thing that's great about Necromunda specifically is the conversion and kit bashing side of things as well.
And I think you kind of lose that.
Yeah, and I think like that loses the the heart and soul of Necromunda.
But there's definitely appeal.
Oh, no, 100%.
To a lot of
And
people.
And there's also like, why if you have a 3D printer, why can't you just print a small thing like, hey, I'm going on holiday. Let's get a few games in so I can chuck it in my suitcase.
Well, here's what you could do, right? And this is a cool idea. It's say, for example, we're talking about Necromunda here. You're playing a campaign with a bunch of your mates, and you're using normal size Necromunda 28mm or whatever it is now. But then you also have your same gang in a 10mm version of your same gang with the same, like a version of in 10mm that you could play on the road on a fucking bus or something. I think that's a cool idea. Warcry would work quite well for because you haven't got really in-depth... Well, the terrain is an element.
I reckon actually Kill Team would be the best because in Kill Team, for your
there's no real measurements in Kill Team as well. And then you can use the adapter as well.
It's just squares and circles.
Yeah, totally. So you just swap the inches and centimetres. Yeah. But also the actual teams are pretty set.
Yeah, they're set.
Like you've got a pretty clear... give or take, you normally got a good makeup for a team.
At the end of the day, you could have a little thing where it's like, here's a picture of a grenade launcher. Like, there's your person.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea, though, and something I'll think on some more. But if you are interested in the idea of seeing 10mm versions of things, then no things in specifically, but similar things to some of the Games Workshop things, then go and have a look at Wakes Emporium on Instagram as well, actually, and Facebook group too. So that's that. What else did we have to talk about? Did you have any third-party or community highlights that you want to talk about?
I think another call-out in the last month from Specialist Games, Old World did an update on who the initial factions are going to be.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
What was that? What game, sorry?
The Old World.
Oh, yeah.
Is Old World a specialist game? I suppose it is.
Yes,
yeah, 100% will be.
It is.
Yeah.
It is officially.
Do we know anything about what it's going to be like? Like what the
square bases?
It's rank and file.
It'll be rank and file. Yeah.
It's rank and file, so it is like fantasy. It's set in the year 2500 or something like that, I think, where the Empire is split. So the Empire, the human guys.
It's just before everything goes to shit.
Yeah, it's not during the end times or anything like that.
Yeah.
I remember the teams who were out, so they announced who they're initially building for. I'm not going to be able to remember them all, but it was High Elves, Dwarves,
Empire,
Bretonnia,
Khemri.
the Tomb Kings,
Lizardmen.
Lizardmen were out. Skaven were out.
What?
Beastmen were in.
Oh, that's cool. Interesting.
Vamps, like the
Vampire, Soul-like,
Carstines, whatever.
Von Carstein.
They were out.
Vampire Counts. That was
Vampire
what they were
Counts.
called back then, I think.
Yeah.
Latin
Von
is
Carsteins or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, it seemed to be what they were looking at is the ranges they were doing did not overlap with AOS.
And it looks like they
By
did.
large.
They're going a little bit more with the, what's it called, Lord of the Rings thing, where have like good versus bad. Because they had two categories as they announced it. It was like there's a left and the right, and it was good versus bad.
Although I think they changed that after.
Did
I think they retconned it a little bit. Yeah, they just on a walk-on article.
We forgot Orcs and Goblins, surely.
Yes,
They gotta be in
Orcs and Goblins were in
That's
there.
like
Yep.
that was like. Yeah.
Yep.
You have to have
that would
orcs.
have been the last one. I think they were combined. I can't remember now.
Yeah, they used to be combined, wouldn't they? Orcs and
I found that interesting just because, like, Beastmen, for example, I was like, haven't been done in a gazillion years. Love the aesthetic, would really like to see them in AOS. And it's like, okay, well, they're not going to come because the sculpts will be made for Old World instead.
He's talking about new sculpts.
Oh, sorry, yeah, new models.
Yeah, they're definitely in AOS.
They're in
So,
it, yeah.
Sorry, but a new model range. And I think they will try and, who knows, we'll see, but I think they'll try and keep them separate. I don't think they'll be that
I think they'll be the same because they haven't done the refresh. They can just go like, here's the same sprue, so they can use the same prints, but just chuck in some square bases instead of circles. So I don't think they'll get a refresh via that.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then it means if they do get a refresh, they've still got the old molds, so they can still make it for the old game.
Yeah. The other thing that happened.
Or technically new old game.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened was at the same event we had the Warcry roadmap. Did you see that? The new Warcry roadmap.
We talked about that last month.
We talked about it last time,
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's fucking so old.
Yeah, that's right. I think everything as far as releases from G-Dubs is on the back burner right now. It's all about 10th, right? It's all about
Tell me
Leviathan,
about it.
pumping that out. In a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
I think they'll drop the starter.
Yeah,
for
okay.
The new Warcry starter.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if
You mean the starter because the last one wasn't a starter, was it? The ghouls.
No, if anyone's played like when Kill Team relaunched, had a starter kit there, which in Australian dollars like $100, which had 2 teams.
Which one was that?
It was
what was in it?
It had Kriegsmen, so veteran guardsmen.
Oh yeah, with the orcs
and commandos, which are the orcs. And the teams were the full sprues
for $100 as well. It was good value.
That's how.
And that's really nice terrain.
No,
but the $100 one was just like a little bit of scatter terrain.
So it's just scatter terrain. It's 2 full sprues of team.
But it's like little tires and shit.
And then
I
just
like that. It's really it worked well for Necromunda.
But then the rules itself were a light version of the rules, which is kind of interesting. It didn't have the custom team rules for those. Whereas Octarius,
it's kind of what Ash Wastes had.
No. It was a starter for $100.
Right, yeah.
It was like 3/4 of the rules, but most of the models. I think the warcry starter is just 2 Underworld's warbands. It's going to be it's going to be about half the point count probably, or 2/3 of the point count of a warcry game. And I personally think it's going to have like a slightly light version of the rules. And then if you want it, you buy a box set, or you then invest in.
It seems like that's the way they're going with a lot of their games at the moment, especially with the new combat patrols with 40k as well, where the rules for combat patrol are going to be different to the main game. So it's kind of like you can buy a combat patrol box, and you should be able to have a competitive game against someone else who bought a combat patrol box, and not a situation of like, I bought this. I'm like, well, no, actually, to play them, you need to buy 3 of these versus one person has to buy one of them.
Is it still in Gur?
Yeah, it's still Go. They changed.
The starter is not.
Really? Do we know where?
No, the starter's not part of a.
I see. Right.
It's standalone.
I suppose that's something to talk about. They're moving the story with AOS.
So am I right in, because I'm stupid, but am I right in thinking that I saw this General's Handbook said something about
that's the new annual, so it's still in Gur. So still, hey, look at you, you're on it. So now that they've been in like the caverns and underground and all that sort of thing with the rules and stuff, and now they've come out and they come into this area in Gur where everything's magical. And so all the rules...
Can you say that again, please?
Magical.
Thank you.
And so this is kind of Zinch's time to shine. But in terms of competitive rules, they've added all these things. So like casters have these... I think one of the rules is actually kind of cool. It's like for every wizard in there, they can dispel and cast 1 extra, which was why I like the AOS thing, because all of a sudden like the meta would be put on its head, because all of a sudden what you thought was good, really good before, now it's completely different. And then it's flavorful because now they've moved in this new area and that's what they're going to explore. So that's what the new season's going.
And how does that represent aesthetically? Is it going to look very different to the forests of Gur?
No, it'll still be the forest and everything like that.
So that's, you're thinking of Warcry there. AOS doesn't really have a like scenery kits or anything per, on a season.
True,
like
true,
yeah.
But it's the same. It's set in the same.
Yeah, so everything's Warcry and AOS is in Gur at the moment, at least the focus.
Did I imagine seeing something about some realm of icy, snowy stuff?
Yes, that's what the new one. It's in Gur still, but the Gur doesn't mean everything's this heavy forest and stuff. It is just in an icy frost area.
Cool.
In Gur.
Yeah.
So maybe the scenery for Warcry will be icy, frosty.
Could be. The starter kit is kind of separate from any sort of narrative. It's just like, here's some teams.
Yeah.
So wouldn't take that as a...
It seems more like like you said, an actual starter set. This is not like, expanding on things. It's like, no, if you just kind of want to get into the game, here's this side thing to...
Yeah.
Technically the scenery is a bit like from one of the old boxes, Mausoleum.
Okay.
But yeah.
So it'll be a death faction?
Yeah, it is. Prince... There's a vamp prince who's in red armor. Prince Duval or something
so it's
So
ones that are already out.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I thought you meant new ones.
True Seekers, I think. So 2 older Underworld sets.
Oh, that kind of sucks. I was hoping for new ones.
This actually got leaked months ago.
Yeah.
Did it?
So like some Spanish version was sent out to some dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, look at that.
Oh, okay.
So old prints, but they'll make it cheaper.
No.
Bit of scatter. That said, these teams are pretty cool. Like the models look fantastic.
So the other one's Stormcast?
Yep. Xandar is True Seekers, I think.
That's
the
cloaked
chick with
hood.
the
lantern.
Isn't she supposed to be really good in Warcry or something?
No idea. But I love that model though. I love that cloaked hood with the lantern.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Zelda.
I've been wanting to pick up those vamps for a while too. They look great.
Yeah. All the vamps look good.
Okay, cool. we should move on to our questions. We've got a few questions from the audience out there. I've written down 5 of the best ones. Sorry if they didn't make it onto here, but I did get quite a few this time.
Damien didn't like your question.
Yeah. Please take that personally.
I thought it was obnoxious. I thought it was an obnoxious question. I was offended by
What
it.
an ignorant question.
It's just so ignorant.
So ignorant.
Okay, so the first question is from Private Public. Who are your YouTube content creator role models and who inspires you to make vids, etc.? I suppose it's mainly to me, but it'd be interesting to know who you find, which channels and people do you guys like watching? And
One of the ones I like, they're called Nextlander. There's a video game podcast.
Yeah.
They also do videos, things like that, and they're just normal people. They're not really YouTubers in terms of whoa, look at this, they're like sort of
What are you
stuff.
saying?
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
No soundboards. God damn it.
But
I've got one. Oh, hold on.
Don't actually do it! Where's your self-recocking spect?
There you go.
yeah, I'm sure that was blasting. But
Now, if you can name where that's from, 10 points. No, you can't.
okay.
As you workling?
As I was. Nextlander, they're quite good. They're just like normal people playing video games. They're older, so they're obviously for the late law to me.
Yeah.
But no, they're quite honest with it. And yeah, I'll highly recommend it if you like video games, watch their stuff.
And that was
Nextlander.
Nextlander. How about you, Rob?
Not that much of a podcaster, ironically.
You don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, don't listen to podcasts. YouTube content, probably following more hobbyist style rather than commentary.
Any particular ones?
What ones have I been getting into lately? Around painting, the painting coach.
Yeah.
War hipster.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting. We watch really different stuff, all of us. Sorry, carry on. I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, they're probably 2 that I've been jumping on a fair bit lately. Especially I've had got Curse City, got these Vatan, and some nice examples.
Put it on in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I don't know. Miniature game montage, huge shout out to you there. He's a cool dude. Really similar to the stuff that I do in Necromunda. Obviously, he's been going a teeny bit longer than me, so yeah, definitely a little bit of an influence as well. Similar format to the Necromunda stuff, but that's kind of similar. What do I actually watch most of the time, though? In terms of hobby stuff and painting, Marco Frassoni, I'd say, was one of my favourites. The guy's just magnetic. I really like him. His accent said, "Hello, guys." He's so Italian. It's great.
It's amazing painter. Unfortunately, my hearing's not the best, so I need subs.
Yeah, he's great though. He's so
subs.
I love his accent. His accent is fucking awesome. So Marco Frassoni, he's an awesome guy. Uses a lot of oils. Uses a lot of techniques that and to be honest, I don't tend to copy other people's styles at all. But he's one of those people that I do go to for tips and stuff. He's one of the only ones that I actually go to and go, "Oh, how did he do it?" I'm going to take some inspiration from that. I don't use an airbrush. He does. So I usually try and do it with a brush, but I'm no painter, so this guy's a really, really amazing painter.
Amazing oil use.
Yeah, really.
I've watched quite a few.
He also uses a lot of contrast paints with oils.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Contrast metallics, things like that.
Or like army painter.
Yeah,
Okay.
that too. And inks. He uses a lot of inks. Airbrushes, inks, white inks, things like that. I need to get an airbrush and really, at some point, properly give it a go.
His stuff is, I find, inspirational, but unachievable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I find that a lot of painting tips and stuff here, which I get excited. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. And it's like, now get your airbrush. And I was like, well, I've already stopped. I can't get any tips from here.
It's weird. A lot of the better ones, frankly, a lot of the best painters use airbrushes, and I think that's just something we have to become.
But I think the thing is, they're good painters. I am not. And he said, I'm not going to get to that point. I'm not saying I can't get to that point, but I don't have the time in my.
I also feel like that. An airbrush is a tool.
It is,
and he uses the tool to great effect.
100%.
There are other channels who achieve great results who don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But
I find the oil's the barrier, by the way, not the airbrush.
Really?
Yeah. I've got an airbrush.
Why? What is it that scares you about oils?
Probably that I've bought like 150 fucking GW paints, and I don't want to spend $1,000 on 150 oil paints.
So all you need is 2 oil paints and some odorless mineral spirits.
I want to go a little bit more than.
Oh, you're talking about actually using them for painting, or are you talking about just washes? Oh, okay. That's intimidating.
Like for a full color palette.
That's intimidating.
Yeah, not just to do an oil wash.
Yeah. Other YouTube stuff that I tend to watch. We were talking about this earlier off camera, but I have a guilty soft spot for you know who I'm talking about. Who are we talking about? I forgot his bloody name now.
Major Kill.
Major Kill, yeah. Like,
It's not a guilty. You could learn to like it. He just
no, I do. I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a fucking shout out to Major Kill. I think he's done an incredible job with doing really funny lore videos, really quick, to the point, gets the lore across. It's funny. Sure, it's done as an Australian, and you guys cringe at that probably because you're Australians, but I'm not an Australian, so I suppose it appeals to me more. I know he gets loads of stick on Twitter from people that get offended too easily by stuff, but I think he's great. I think he's really smart and really intelligent, and he's a super young kid, and he's super energetic and just funny, to be honest. I really enjoy watching his stuff. Shout out to him. I think he's in Melbourne. I think he's from Melbourne. Not really sure.
Don't know. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Yeah, you should check him out. I just find him funny. He's a funny guy. That's that one. Next question was from CB. If you were to introduce an Imperial Fist to a Necromunda scenario, what would their stats be, and how would they react to a hive war happening all around them?
So, as an Iron Warriors player, it would be a corpse of an Imperial Fist.
Well, they're at the top, aren't they? There's like a...
They are.
Yeah.
So Necromunda recruits from... Imperial Fist recruit from Necromunda. Not only Necromunda, but it's one of the worlds.
What's their stat line then?
I think it was Dan Abnett who did something about Space Marines being incorporated into Necromunda at some point. Someone did. One of the novelists did. And it was just the stats were absolutely ridiculous because that's how much Space Marines should be. So it's not a case of giving them 2+2+2+. It's a case of having completely different, just something different that makes them basically just
mortal.
Pretty much like... The difference between a human, like a hiver, compared to an Astartes, is
not even a healthy
I don't think people realise. I don't think people realise the gulf in between an Astartes and a human. It's not even worth mentioning.
And also, I think they there's a lot of Astartes, like there's human worlds that have never seen a Space Marine ever in their life. They're like this mythological guys
they've got
that turn up.
a gazillion different new organs.
Yeah.
Aren't they like 10 feet tall?
They can have a leg amputated and keep on fighting and not die and stuff. It's just silly. Like they
can breathe. They can survive in space without spacesuit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they've got these weird glands that then seal up their face or excrete from their skin.
Poisons, gases, all sorts of shit. You can't.
They get shot to go to bleed, and it instantly just swells, and so then
they're basically the Terminator, pretty much. So the answer to that question is, I personally wouldn't put them in a Necromunda scenario because I just think it would be too much disparity between them.
It could be good.
Maybe a prospect.
You know what would be good?
I think that'd be really good in a scenario where it's kind of like you can't do anything and this guy's going to be walking around. You just have to run around and avoid it.
Why would an Imperial Fist be in the Underhive? They'd be Uphive, maybe talking to a Lord or something, but they're not going to be Underhive.
What about
lore-wise? No, there's no way they'll do it.
Lore-wise, it's
do you
not.
still have like scouts?
Space Marine scouts,
prospects,
who have
they haven't gone through the process yet of being made into a Space Marine.
I think it'd be a really cool way of doing like a Necromunda campaign where at the start there's just like some very minor chaos stuff, and all of a sudden throughout the whole thing's all of a sudden like, there's a chaos spawn, and all of a sudden it's like just things get like worse and worse, and all of a sudden that's when you're like a scout comes up. Oh, what's a scout doing there? And when it comes to the end, it's almost like what's actually happening with the Necromunda gangs means jack all. That just happened to be an area where there's infestation that they need to do. So it's like a side story for the Imperial Fist to be there. And these guys are fighting like, oh, there's this guy here. It's like, we don't care about you. We're going over here. Yeah. So it could be good in that sort of sense where they're in accidental fire of another scenario. It's almost like a whole different storyline happening separate to them that has happened to be in the same area. That could be a good way of incorporating.
Or just having a scenario where there's a relic that is like part of an Imperial Fist's armor, like a helmet, and you have to rescue a relic or some shit like that. But actually having an Astartes living and breathing in the Underhive would just be silly. Sorry.
As I want to re-emphasize, as an Iron Warriors player, having a living, breathing Imperial Fist player is just silly. No.
But the other part to that question was how would they react to a hive war going on around them? I can tell you how they would react, and you need to read, which Horus Heresy novel is it, right near the beginning, where all the people just get bashed.
Oh, yeah.
Bashed to death because they're blocking the way of a little procession of lunar wolves. They just fucking kill everybody with their hands, bare hands. And it's just absolutely. This is before the lunar wolves are like
literally dismemberment just from apart.
Just like bashing women and children to death, just because they got in the way of a Space Marine. So that's how they.
Not during a war or anything like that. There's got to
and at that point they were the good guys. So that's how much they value human life. They just get in the way. So they don't really care.
No.
They're not They're honourable, but not when it comes to bashing women and children to death.
Are they honourable?
No, they get the job done. Next question is Spirit Stone Warrior. What skills would you recommend on a Lizardman Blood Bowl team once they've got some SPP? Have you played Lizardman at all?
No, I've never played as Lizardman.
Well, the obvious core skills that you're going to want to give your Saurus, probably block, guard.
Oh, that's like literally every single, like, which thing? Like, block, guard.
Well, no, but it's not always the same. But
Yeah,
you're going
block is
to
always
want block first, of course, on your
Block on
Saurus.
pretty much block on every single.
You're going to want guard on doubles. If you're playing the old version, you're going to want dodge as well, just so you've got more annoying blockers. Break tackle is also actually worth it on Saurus because they've got such low agility. Break tackle is actually a good one with strength 4. It's not bad. So that can be a good one too. I usually had a Frenzy Saurus, one Frenzy Saurus, maybe a Tackle Saurus as well. There's your Saurus. For Skinks, you got sure hands, sure feet. Sidestep is probably my first pick on Skinks generally. With agility access, sidestep I think is the best skill on stunties, particularly high moving stunties, because you got the ball, you get tackled, you got sidestep, you can gain another square, potentially score more easily.
I was looking at Rob's face when he's like,
Straight
over the head. He's like, oh god.
Croxigore, of course. If
I'm
you
just
get a
wondering
double,
when you're going to promote the passing stat.
well, in a Lizardmen team, you're not passing at all.
Yes, you are. They've got catches.
Oh, second season.
Tell me they don't.
I'm pretty sure there's a model that has like the tongue coming out.
They're a running team.
Sorry?
No, okay, so
No. They're a running team, but I'm also probably completely wrong, so it doesn't matter.
no, they
You
do
both
have a
give
new
me
piece.
an
They have
up
a
and down.
chameleon skink,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a catcher though. I don't think. They
Yeah,
have,
but it can catch.
can it? I mean,
I'm
yeah, well,
assuming
they
so.
can pass and catch. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, even with
All you
that,
need is good agility.
even with that, they're not a passing team because they're stunties.
He's slowly and slowly just chipping away at his soul.
Look, skinks are stunties. They can't throw very well.
No, skinks, yeah, they're not throwing. They wouldn't have the
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
But I have seen long passes, long bombs to Croxigores to score and things like that. So you never have. Croxigores are great. Block, guard, again. Stand firm.
Oh, this is
Break
just getting
tackle.
too easy.
I was just going to get back into it, but the burning sensation's taking over again.
So that was question 3.
It hurts me.
Moving on to question 4. Amigon. What Blood Bowl and Fumble leagues have I been in? And what was my Fumble ranking? Not telling you that. Do you prefer league or NAF style tournaments? And what do you think of the new teams? Both of us, I suppose. Again, we've already kind of covered that. What do you think of the new teams in terms? Have you played before Nobility and stuff?
No, like I'm so new to the hobby, as we said.
What do you think of Nobility and Black Orcs?
Black Orcs are really fun. I've played
There's
with
some
them.
great conversions with the nobility sculpts.
Yeah,
Oh,
especially with
shit,
the.
yeah. It's a nice
especially-
kit.
And they're also good to use elsewhere with those feather caps and stuff. They look great.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix between you can do like an up high raiment sort
Yeah.
of thing
Yeah.
for Necro. You've also got some of the chest plates and stuff with the big ribbon. Yeah.
Nice sculpts. Don't know how they play. Haven't played them. Haven't played Black Orcs either. Haven't played any of the new teams, I'm afraid.
The corn one's fun with all the frenzy because the crowd surfing, that's fun.
Do I prefer NAF style tournaments or leagues? It's 50-50. I kind of prefer the tournaments when they're more fun and everyone gets drunk and stuff. I think that's great. Just real camaraderie and just fun times. But leagues are great as well. Yeah, both is good. Both are different. Depends what you want, really. I think a bit of both.
I far for leagues. You're telling a story. That's what I like about it. We always played about like these certain games we still remember now.
League is narrative.
Yeah.
Tournament is tournament.
And I'm a narrative person,
competitive,
so,
yeah. So you can still have narrative within the tournament, but
Not to that level though, because
You gather
you're only
around-
playing against it. Oh, you gather around people, you learn about things. But
yeah, you go, I remember that 10 years ago. I remember that tournament. That guy did that thing.
Yeah.
Do that stuff. So there's narrative around that, I suppose. But
To be fair, the narratives you gave had nothing to do with the games.
true. The next question, bit of a rude one here. Erectus666. Shout out to Erectus666. What a name! Great name.
That's
well
amazing.
done. How fast can you swallow? Oh, sorry. How fast?
Wow.
Inappropriate.
Okay, I
This is
start
the real
again.
reason you have to leave Melbourne.
Start again. Don't know why I'm doing the bell, but how fast can a swallow carrying a coconut travel?
A European or American?
So straight over your head, eh?
Was it European American or
Wait,
European at
I've
all?
got the answer. I wrote it down. I wrote the answer down. There is little information available on the carrying capacity of swallows, either African or European, but given the weight disparities involved, we can safely assume that even a team of swallows, utilising some sort of makeshift litter devised of creeper vines woven together, would still be incapable of transporting a coconut over even short distances. Assuming, of course, that was something a group of swallows wanted to do. Fun fact, a group of swallows is called a gulp.
Wow.
This is a Monty Python joke.
Okay.
The Holy Grail.
Yeah, so that's your answer to that one.
It's
I
only
love
a
the
model.
question, though. I got it straight away because it's awesome. I love Monty Python. So that's that. Those are the end of the 5 questions. No competition this time because too much going on in our lives. We've got a little bit more time, though. A couple more shout-outs, I think. Have you guys got any particular shout-outs you want to get across?
Not right now, to be honest. No.
No? Have you no shout-outs? Do you want to shout out your family and stuff?
No.
Okay, well, fine. I've got a few. First of all, massive shout out to Pete Nifton. Talking about Blood Bowl, I have to shout out Pete Nifton. I mentioned him earlier. Pete Nifton, awesome guy. Did all the illustrations for early Blood Bowl, 2nd edition, 1st edition, all that stuff, black and white, comic style stuff. He did loads of other stuff as well for Games Workshop, but also outside of Games Workshop as well. Still is an illustrator, still does loads of stuff. I'm mates with him on Facebook, actually. Really nice guy. But yeah, Pete Nifton, huge shout out for Pete Nifton. Hopefully one day I'll get him on the show. Maybe I'll hit him up and actually get him on this. That would be really cool to do. Print minis. Again, talking about print minis. Print minis have got in touch with me, actually. So I might talk to Print minis about doing something. Who knows?
I think we talked about them in the Necro episode, right?
We did. We did, and they listened.
Oh, we are.
So shout out to Print Minis. So that's really nice to hear. Again, reiterating this shout out for Richard Strachan, who wrote that awesome AOS book. Go read it. The next thing, of course, is Paotearoa, which are my mates who do a Blood Bowl podcast based in New Zealand, all about the New Zealand Blood Bowl League. Really nice guys. Tricky, down in Dunedin, I think you are. Awesome guy. He's also from the UK. And a couple of people there as well. Go check that podcast out particularly if you're in New Zealand, because you'll get it. Lots of New Zealand humour there as well. So that's those guys. Other than that, we've got big shout out to New Zealand Blood Bowl in general. Of course, that was my sort of home. That was when I got back into to Blood Bowl after years and years of being out of the loop. They were some really good mates of mine, and I missed them all. Hopefully maybe one day I'll pop back to a tournament over there. Who knows? And maybe I'll actually win one. That would be nice. It would take a couple of them would need to retire before I actually manage that one.
You'll retire there.
Yeah.
On a permanent.
Yeah, maybe we can work something out. Yeah. Other than that, worth shouting out all the patrons as well, because I haven't actually done it on any of these because it's not because I'm lazy. I just overlooked it, really. So giving some names out here, actually. Why not?
Hey.
Charlie Bell, Colin Sushinitz, Dave Forster, David Vayert, I believe it's pronounced. George Schultz. Sorry, I'm butchering these names. George Schultz here. We've got Ethan T, Harry Bob. We've spoken to Harry Bob quite a bit in the Discord. Harry Bob's quite an active member of the Discord. Jaden, Jay Murmur, Josh Thomas, Lindsay Wood, Magobo, Patrick Barton, Polo Grande, Sean Leary, Simon De Silva, who was our competition winner a couple of episodes ago and is also in Sydney, so I'll be meeting up with you at some point, and Slam Rogers, great name there as well.
What a name.
That's a great name. That sounds like a Blood Bowl, actually.
It really does, doesn't it?
It's a star player right there.
Awesome name there, yeah. So I think that's pretty much it for this episode, isn't it? I think what's the time? Yeah, perfect.
Perfect timing.
Absolutely bang on. I guess that's where we're going to end things. Thank you for tuning in, I suppose, and we'll catch you, hopefully, the next episode. Maybe we can get together and do another episode before I leave.
Yeah.
Which is in like 4 weeks' time. So I guess we'll talk about that off camera.
We'll figure out a way to have our voices together.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll figure out a way with technologies and internets and things. But I've got to have a better internet connection than I've got here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because my internet connection's absolute dog shit here. Absolutely terrible. Yeah. So that's it. Anyway, peace out.
Take it easy.
Yeah.